Hello and welcome to round 7 of Bologna Modern Tournament. It's myself, Skóra, and Canister, a well-known
Hi.
Polish streamer. And we'll be diving into the match soon enough. But first, we'll take a look at the prizes what players are playing for. And let me tell you, if you win this event, you're not coming back empty-handed. 2,400 ticks, almost $6K, 25 boxes. Like 25 boxes. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen 25 boxes just, in one place.
At this point, it becomes troublesome to carry them all back home, right?
It does. Also, free entry, invitation to Lille, and flight voucher. Now, you also get Lille invitation if you top 32 this event, which I assume is the goal
Yeah, like
for a
the
lot of
main
players.
prize for many players. The main thing to strive for is the RC Lille qualification so that they can pursue the dream of qualifying for the Pro Tour.
Yeah, precisely. So we'll see how many people get to day 2. The cut is 7-2 right now, or 7-2 or better. So it's not easy. It's not easy, especially without buys.
Yeah, it's 9 rounds of Magic. You have to play through them all. You have to win a large majority of them.
Yep.
It's no small feat to get there.
It's no small feat. So if you day 2 this event, you can put it on your Magic resume and boast about it. And if you go even further, top 64, top 32, top 8, you get nice prizes on top of that achievement. Players high rolling and preparing for the game. Now the matchup we'll be watching, Burn, Amulet Titan. And I want to say 2 things. One, Burn is undefeated. Burn is both on table 2 and table 3. And second thing, I've heard rumors that this is an awful matchup for Burn.
Yes, typically not very happy to face Amulet Titan with your Burn deck. So, there's many good matchups, there's many fine matchups where you can fight through your opponent's defense or even lack of defense sometimes, like against the focal of decks or maybe even living in. Sometimes you can just present enough pressure that they just have no way of coming back as early as turn 2 or 3 really, but Amulet Titan doesn't take any damage from its mana base. It also does not take too long to develop a Titan and win, so...
Yeah, also cards like Searing Blaze, not really effective in this matchup.
Yeah.
While they're actually relevant pieces of interaction in others. So, this might be tricky. I've heard that literally a miracle has to happen for you to win, but maybe turn 1 Expedition map instead of Amulet of Vigor counts.
Yeah. This is a closed decklist tournament, so players don't know what they are playing against. So what we see here is actually, I think we see a Radiant Fountain in the opening hand for Gorla, which is even more devastating for Godoy. It's not even that common of an inclusion in Amulet nowadays, but it's really good against Burn.
So what's the reason to play Radiant Fountain in a deck that already has an almost impossible to lose matchup?
Well,
any other applications maybe?
I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. It's certainly every bit helps, and it is just really, really strong, right? With the Fountain, yeah, I could make that claim. I could agree with your claim that it is potentially on the verge of being unlosable.
So now we see Roiling Vortex on turn 2. So first of all, what cards is it particularly strong against Amulet Titan? And 2, why would you play that card in the first place?
Many Burn players seem to drop Eidolon of Great Travel and replace it with most often Rolling Vortexes in the main deck. It's a effective way to fight against life gain from cards like Omnath or some other problematic life gain sources. It's a great hate piece against Cascade decks where it makes your opponent's living end deal 5 damage to them immediately. And it's also stops many other free spells. Even in the Amulet deck, we have Pact of Summoner's Pact, which costs 0 mana. So right now it would cost 10 life to cast. Probably we're not gonna see any cast this game.
And I think if we see Summoner's Pact, the Burn player knows that they're probably dead on that same turn.
Yeah.
So now we see 2 damage every upkeep to both players. The Burn player is now the one who's got lower life total. Actually, even more value can be taken from Radiant Fountain because of Vesuva, right? We could copy get the trigger.
Yeah, you could also bounce it back to your hand and replay it with just the classic bounce lands, Caro lands, and the Amulet deck. On the other hand, Rolling Vortex has that life gain blocking ability, so it is able to interact at least a little bit.
Yeah, and now we see Bolt you, skewer you with Spectacle, maybe another. Okay, so go the added a land and then skewered to always have mana up, I assume, for the Rolling Vortex prevent of life gain? Or
Oh, seems like we're
oh,
casting yet another skewer.
okay, triple. We've got a set of skewers, and we'll update the life total soon enough.
That leaves Gorla a window to, well, first and foremost, a window to copy the second amulet and try to go for the win on the next turn, which seems very possible, and I think was actually something that Gorla is able to do with the cards in hand and in play.
Yeah, I see Amulet Titan. Okay, so we'll now find a Bounce Land, right?
Yeah, we're probably gonna see a Seeming Grove Chamber.
Bounce Land now makes 4 mana, right? Because of 2 untaps.
Yes.
So that's not enough for a Titan.
That is not enough, but we've seen, or at least I've seen, an Arboreal Grazer in hand for Gorla, which
Yes.
leaves him with 3 mana in the mana pool. Seeming Grove Chamber enters the battlefield again, untaps twice. That's 7 mana total.
Yeah. So even gets a bit of mana on top of that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the probably players discussing whether they need to, visually show what's happening. But I think the burn player says, "Well, yeah, I get you," and then says, "Oh, this actually might be the courtesy of just streaming, so that the chat knows also what's going on." So we've got all 5 basics, all 4, probably all foil,
Daisy foil, yeah.
indicating mana. 1, 2, Grazer, trigger at 4. Up,
3 green, 4 blue. Bounce back the Seeming Grove Chamber, fair.
trigger.
Yeah, play the Primeval Titan.
So what's roughly the plan from this point? Is it a kill? And how do we achieve it?
It is gonna be a kill, I believe, and the simplest way to get there is to get Boros Garrison and Slay a Stronghold. Untap both of those lands with your amulet triggers. Grant your amulet +2/+0. Haste Vigilance twice. Make your Titan into a 10/6. Move to combat. Attack with your Titan. Fetch a Vesuva and a Sunhome. Copy your Boros Garrison. Untap your Vesuva. Now Boros Garrison twice. Grant double strike to your Titan. Deal up to 20 damage to your opponent, who is actually at 15, so it is well over enough.
Yes, you explained, and this is exactly what happened at every single stage. So Canister, excellent control player, knows exactly what's going on, and yes, that concludes it.
Yeah. Opponent Godoy seemed to be convinced by Gorla's show of power and confidence.
Yeah, and that was pretty clean. Like Gorla wasn't really like fumbling around. He knew exactly the kill. Just found what he needed. Yep.
Yeah, didn't draw pact. Didn't need to pact, so that was very convenient because the pacts were effectively turned off by the double Rolling Vortex.
So now we're going to sideboarding, and I think there are multiple ways to try to fight back in this Titan matchup. I'm not saying any of them are good, but what card would you bring in? Path to Exile, Deflecting Palm, Smash to Smithereens, Wear.
Yeah, typically I would not want to interact with the Titan. Like at that point, it's kind of late, and your opponent might as well like be able to play around it either with Valaku triggers from Dryad of Elysian Grove or with just the surplus of resources. So I'm not a fan of Path to Exile and Deflecting Palm, although some people are. I do think that attacking the mana production ability of the Amulet deck is a pretty good angle to go with, and Smash the Smithereens, which you mentioned, is a pretty great one.
Yeah, so that draw basically was missing a creature on 1 that could be like a consistent source of damage, because
yes.
the burn player deployed 2 vortexes, so that's 4 mana worth of cards, and dealt like what, 4 damage total or something like that, while a turn 1 Goblin Guide would actually give you much more value, just a single Goblin Guide, and cost a fourth of that cost. So vortexes, stinky. We want creatures actually turn 1. Especially in this case
Yeah,
where
you
there wasn't
certainly
any
want
grazer.
creatures, although Arboreal Grazer sometimes puts a stop to that
Yeah.
and just blanks your creatures entirely, so...
Yeah, which is another reason why this matchup is so bad. You don't really want to see Graze on the other side of the battlefield. Oh, we got a glimpse of Portable Hole in the sideboard for the Ben player.
That is interesting. It does
Would you say
help
that
you attack the amulets themselves,
Yeah.
but
Amulets, kinda Grazer if you need to.
yeah, it's not great against Urza's Saga, for example, because Urza's Saga is going to be a land. You cannot portable hole it, then towards the turn 3 or 4, Saga grabs the amulet, and then the amulet player can combo off immediately. So the sorcery speed aspect of it is a pretty big bummer, I think. So I would probably personally avoid that, although we're going to see what strategy Godoy comes up with, given his cards.
Yeah, and they're just shuffling up, presenting the deck soon enough. We've just had them playing for like 8-ish minutes. Okay, so presenting the decks, and let's go. So, what do you want to include in your opening 7 as the burn player on the play?
Well, so far we see Gorla's hand, and I see a Grazer in it, which is perfect. Turn 1 Grazer, amulets. So, just very easy potential for a pretty explosive hand. On the other hand, for Godoy, we want a creature on turn 1. We want burn spells. We want a nice mix of lands and spells, and we want a fast hand.
Yeah. So you'd like to average out your hand to like 1.5 mana cost, probably.
Yeah. Don't want to draw too many expensive spells. That's a Goblin Guide.
Trigger, okay.
It's a downside of Goblin Guide against Amulet. Certainly, it hits lands often. After all, it's like a 30, 32, 33 land deck.
To answer some of the chat's questions, yes, there is going to be a replay of this whole tournament, probably on Monday-ish on the YouTube channel of Legacy. Second thing, yes, Harry MTG is doing commentary, but he's doing every other round. This round is cast by myself, Skura, also known as Islands in Front, and a well-known streamer and content creator, Canister.
Exactly.
So, Goblin Guide. Waiting to try to attack, but...
A Searing Blaze would be excellent. You'd spend 1 card to deal 3 damage, get an attack through. You bring Gorla to 15, then to 13, which still looks a little bit rough, but is a plan. Otherwise, maybe even a Lightning Bolt targeting the Arboreal Grazer might be a reasonable move.
I think the Titan player was double checking if that basic was a swamp or a mountain, because it kind of looks swampy.
Yeah. Always have to be,
Nowadays, you have to be careful with the lands.
Yeah, just have to be careful. Never know if your opponent will cast a bump in the night.
Yep.
And their parent deck, it makes sense.
They just might. So, second Goblin Guide, okay. Will it be a draw 2? Let's see. Will it be a draw 2?
Pact. All right.
Okay. So now I assume we just slide that Grazer up, say block, and just get 2 damage in.
Now noting down the pact, yeah, making sure that we know what is in Gorla's hand. It's very careful play, very careful attention to detail by Godoy. Impressive move.
Yeah, very professional. You don't want to be caught off guard, let's say 3 turns from now, saying, oh, I forgot what you had. Right? It's just kind of awkward.
Yeah. Well. Oh, Curse of Silence. That's an interesting
one. Okay. So let me put that on the screen.
I would behave similarly to Gorla right now, because I would definitely need to reread that card to make sure what exactly does it do.
So why would you play it, and what does it do? So it enters the battlefield, and it chooses a card name. And spells with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast. And when they are cast, you can sack the curse and draw a card. So basically, Primeval Titan costs 8.
I would assume that Primeval Titan is the card that is being named, and the slip of paper filled out by Godoy seems to indicate that.
Yes.
Shaken vigorously.
Yes. And the first line of text isn't very legible, but the second one certainly says Titan.
Titan, yeah. So Gorla might need to tighten his seatbelts for the rest of this game.
So any other names you could potentially go for? For example, Dryad of Elysian Grove?
Maybe you revealed a pact, so like you kind of could name the pact, but it doesn't make much sense. The pact will get the Titan most often. But yeah, what we see from Gorla right now is an amulet, and there was a Mykosin Gardens in there. Probably he is just going to copy the amulet at saucer speed. That is a very heads-up move. It plays around Smash the Smithereens or Werther, any other potential removal spell that could show up. So now that he has 2 amulets, next turn could be very explosive, and I think he will be able to afford 2 extra mana. Unless some interruptions from Godoy emerge.
Yeah, so both players playing very professionally, right? Noting all the cards, playing around everything they can, right, in their power. Because a lot of players, I think, really want to play instant speed effects, instant speed, and as late as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But that can come back to bite you sometimes.
This was a classic example of it being better to do a thing at sorcerer speed rather than to wait. In that case, you don't get absolutely blown out and waste your mana. If your opponent uses a Smash the Smithereens on your amulet, you just get to lose one of your amulets, but you keep the other.
Right, so again, considering attacks, yeah, double trigger, reveal Dryad, then the second trigger resolves, reveal Dryad.
Dryad is equal +1 mana effectively with 2 amulets in play. You play a bounce land, you play Dryad, you can play another land, so you get an extra 1 mana into your mana pool.
So the amulet player has the One Ring in hand, but the One Ring isn't that good against burn.
You certainly don't want to lose life to it. Yeah, it's like against burn, it's mostly 4 mana fog
the creatures, right?
Yeah.
Because like if you play the One Ring and they've got instant speed burn, they will just burn you in response to the trigger. And then if they have more burn, they will wait until another turn cycle and unload anyways. So it only fogs the actual creatures like, let's say, double Goblin Guide. So in this case, it would be like fogging 2 damage.
True,
but it's not as good as against Prowess it would.
It's also not as good as playing a Primeval Titan and winning the game, which is a possible line that Gola will be able to take if he's not afraid of interaction with Dryad and Double Pact. We could easily see Dryad Pact for Arboreal Grazer produce +1, then +3, then +4, so that's 8 mana total, exactly enough to play a Primeval Titan and then win. Now, that plan could fail if interrupted with a Path to Exile, sort of.
Or maybe like a Werther, because you could kill Amulet, kill Dryad. Mess up the plan a bit.
Or maybe if there was a Deflecting Palm on its way. That could actually be problematic in this game if doesn't play carefully.
That can change the math. Right? Because if the Titan now costs 2 more, but it's Dryad, and we're actually spelling out the full name.
Makes sense.
So we've got a Dryad of Elysian Grove on one of them and Primeval Titan on the other. So now with Dryad costing 5 and Titan costing 8, the line you proposed isn't really possible, right?
Let me
recount.
So we're starting with 2 mana, which I might have ignored. So we start with 2 mana, we play a bounce land, we go to 6 mana, then we pact, we get a Grazer, then we go to 5 mana, and we go to 8 mana. So the Dryad was actually not needed in that line, thanks to the 2 lands that begin the turn in play. So it is still possible to play a Titan and go for the double strike line. Now, I guess the only scary thing is Deflecting Palm or Path, as we said.
Okay. So we take out our land proxy tokens, float mana, return Boseiju.
Boseiju.
Is it more like a no, I might as well, or is there an actual real good purpose for it? So like for example, kill the curse, but then it costs 2 anyways, right? So
Yeah. Seems like Gorla just decided to develop this turn to play Dryad to just chill a little bit. No rush in his view. Seems like take care of the curse, have a 2/4 blocker so he cannot be attacked. He's at 14 live anyways versus what, 2 free cards now with the curse card draw trigger.
there could be some absurd scenarios where Godoy plays another, let's say, Sacred Foundry, and you could, in some kind of weird way, Boseiju the opponent off of untapped white because they cannot find another,
Yeah.
something like that.
You could also save it and then play it on Rolling Vortex if that ever
Comes
gets
down, yeah.
played, comes down, although might have as well been sideboarded out.
Okay, so now we see the One Ring. So it is like a setup turn, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Now Gorla is at 14, so I don't think he's in any rush.
Yeah, I think that's why he plays like that, because he just wants to be able to beat Deflecting Palm or Path to Exile with confidence, without fear.
So 4 to you. Of course, the life total is decreasing, not increasing, so we'll fix that soon enough. Gorla isn't at 20.
That would indeed be fairly counterproductive if Boros Charm gained your opponent
Yes.
for life points. It's like playing a singleton Emrakul in Dredge, where you get to sweat it every turn, and maybe you're gonna dredge over your Emrakul, ruin all of your progress, but I guess it makes it more exciting. That said, Godoy is considering his options. There is protection from everything. Yeah, just letting Godoy read up on that enters the battlefield trigger a little bit. Cannot be targeted by burn spells, cannot be dealt damage this turn, so what is gonna happen?
It just passes.
Yeah, nothing. Seems to make sense.
Now, interestingly, Gorla didn't even activate the One Ring, right? Doesn't want to lose any life.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the extra cards. He has all the pieces he needs, I think. He can just like play Titan, fetch a Radiant Fountain.
This kind of also proves why this is such a terrible matchup, because Titan doesn't even have this kind of aggressive fast draw. He's just like chilling. Play a spell, and it's still ahead.
Yeah, exactly. There might also be Cultivator Colossus in the deck, possibly. So that is like also an alternative line if you want to go for the Colossus to gain lots of value and also beats the potential Deflecting Palm.
Right.
If you're scared of that, but Titan is plenty enough. Bouncing back the Seeming Growth Chamber makes sense. Saving yourself the option to bounce back Tolera West if things go south, as they say.
Yeah, and we found the Titan with Summoner's Pact, which is a great way to, for free, find any green creature you want. And the downside of paying 4 might not even be relevant if you're closing the game on that same turn.
Exactly.
But even if you don't, that Titan ramped you, so you've got the mana to pay for the Pact. So now the rules regarding the Pact have changed over time. Right now, the opponent can put the trigger on the stack if they wish to. They will usually wish to. And if the opponent is tapped out, they would lose.
Exactly. So now we see Godoy tapping 2 mana for what could possibly maybe a Skullcrack, which is a card that would make sense to cast in response to the Titan.
So
Not quite. I guess you'd prefer to play it in response to the lands, but Smash the Smithereens. Okay, that's a pretty late one. He waited on this Smash the Smithereens for a moment, so that's an interesting choice.
So I've got a question then. You're low on life total against burn. So you go, okay, Primeval Titan, find Radiant Fountain and Vesuva because I want to gain 4. Does it work?
Actually, it does not. A unique quirk of copying effects and like permanents entering the battlefield at the same time in Magic the Gathering is so that you cannot actually clone the other land you're getting with a Primal Titan, because it would have needed to already have been on the battlefield. So what you can do oftentimes is get a Radiant Fountain and a Seeming Growth Chamber, then bounce your Radiant Fountain, and if you have any extra land drops saved, like it often is the case with Dryad of the Elysian Grove, you can then replay your fountain.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. And that's something I think people miss quite a lot. Because maybe they're used to like Coco into Eternal Witness, and that Witness does return the Coco.
Yeah,
And
yes.
that play pattern got ingrained, and now it's weird to see that you cannot Vesuva the same land you find.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different scenario, but I see how intuitively it definitely like seems the same.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
makes sense to confuse that a little bit.
But yeah, Canister is always on top of that rules game, so we know now that's impossible. So let's see what does get found.
We got the Slayer Stronghold and Boros Garrison, and now we get a Radiant Fountain and a Valakut. So 2 Valakut triggers.
Gain to life.
Gain to life. Gola is at 7. Is that correct? Yeah.
It seems to be that
Seems
way,
to be the case, yeah.
And Godoy hasn't considered yet, and he knows what's up, so maybe there is Deflecting Palm coming.
Let's see.
Double
Valakut
checking.
is gonna target.
Okay, so just kill off the creature, so it doesn't seem to be the turn where he intends to win.
All right.
We have to remember about the pack trigger. If Dryad stays on the battlefield, we've got plenty of green. If it doesn't, we've got actually specifically 2 green.
All right. Will the Titan deal damage? I think it's pretty clear that Godoy doesn't have a Deflecting Palm by now. As much as he wants to sell the idea that he does, like the Titan has already attacked, it's like, you know, it's not gonna change.
Lose to Charm You. Because it could be like Charm You, Bolt You, right? This could be lethal.
I believe Gola should be at 9 from the Radiant Fountain trigger.
Oh, that make it much more difficult.
Certainly, certainly.
This game has lasted way longer than I thought it would, actually. We've got 25 minutes.
Spike,
Okay.
Spike.
Okay, the last one. Ooh!
Exactly that.
Nice. Okay. I didn't expect that.
Yeah,
burn.
this is pretty interesting. I'm not
Wow.
I'm not 100% sure if Gola has played 2 lands on his turn, as he was able to with Thread of the Elysian Grove. He probably did. But I was trying to thinking of lines that would incorporate Radiant Fountain getting bounced and replayed, but seemingly it was not quite possible to achieve on that turn.
Yeah, that was exciting. You know, you think one player is doomed to lose, and then they say, well, no, I'm actually winning this one. But now Godoy is on the draw.
Yeah, that's it. That said, it's like one of the more powerful tools, the Smash Smithereens. Like that card can flip games against Amulets for sure.
Okay, so yeah, playing shuffling up. I think Godoy is making some changes now that he's on the draw. So typically when you're on the play, you try to be more aggressive, and on the draw a bit more defensive. But how far does it go? Like, do you drastically change that? Or is it like maybe you add 2 more reactive cards?
Just, well, depends on how flexible your deck is in the first place. Burn, I would not call a very flexible deck, so, you know, while Goblin Guide is much weaker on the draw, it still probably stays in your deck because you still need to deal damage, and like you're not backing away from that idea. We might see, you know, we could see cards like Rolling Vortex show up on the play, but not really on the draw, for example. Like this is a type of a card that I think changes a lot, and on the draw it might be just simply too slow, and the play it might be quick enough to deal enough damage and lock out the pacts to be an attractive option for Godoy.
And one of the MVPs of the game, Curse of Silence. Not something we would expect, not something we would expect to flip the matchup.
Yeah, certainly.
But
It's not as best in the matchup, but it seemed good enough.
I mean, especially if you're playing 1-drop plus Curse, right? Or 2 drops, 2 1-drops and a Curse, right? So you probably don't want to play it turn 1 instead of a creature, but you want to play it, let's say, turn 3 to then stop the subsequent potential threat of Titan, right? So you want to establish pressure and then go with Disruption. Just Disruption won't cut it. Andrea Mengucci is on Scam, actually, and has dropped, actually. He's on 3. He was 3-3 and dropped from the main event. So
Very sad.
very sad indeed. But he'd had just so many good results on those like legacy European Tour events. Like he kept, I think he dated like almost every one of them in the past, and like top 16th most of them. So yeah, he's been a beast certainly.
Speaking of beasts, Gorla shuffling up his deck and certainly hoping to see Arboreal Grazer in his opening hand yet again.
Yeah. Arboreal Grazer is something you do want to be able to block those early creatures. Now, the last game, Grazer has like soaked up maybe 6 points of damage.
Yeah, I think it was 6.
So like that's huge. That's 2 bolts worth of damage. I think I saw like 1,000,000 lands, yeah, and we're sending it back.
Not good enough. Amulet is a deck that both like can and can't afford to mulligan a lot. It's a little bit tricky. In a matchup like Bern, it should be fine for the most part, but the cards that have a lower amount of the hands that have a lower amount of cards are going to be more vulnerable to interaction like smashes, smithereens, etc. 7-card hands oftentimes will have enough lands to kind of ramp manually if you're getting disrupted anyways. If you are on a lower amount of cards, then you just physically cannot have enough lands in your hand, and you are much more reliant on your accelerators.
So if you're Gorlai, are you looking for kind of not drawy goldfishy hands, or maybe more stable? I know I will win, but let's say on turn 5. Which way do you want to go?
We go for the not draw in the matchup. We need to be fast. Amulet can be really fast. It is also pretty consistent at doing so. Between Amulet itself, Urza's Saga fetching the Amulet, Mykosin Garden serving as an extra copy of Amulet often enough. You're just looking for a hand that's going to be able to produce double Amulet and then just pop off by turn 3, 4.
So basically what we're saying now. Forest, Painless, Amulet,
Portable Hall. Here it
Let's
goes.
go. So this is, okay, I'll put it on the screen because people who play Pioneer will know it. But modern players, I don't think so.
And I think we see an example of a hand that relied on Amulet quite a bit, although I think there's a second bounce land, a Golgari Rod Farm, which actually, no, it's a Radiant Fountain?
I don't know.
I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, but then immediately Grazer, holding off potential attacks.
So you can ramp up the Grazers, but you need to... It's the Radiant Fountain, I think. When Vesuva now. Interesting.
Trigger. No Skullcrack in response. And pass. What does it indicate? 4 mana, pass.
Well, it indicates no ramp spells, and we see a Pact, a Vesuva, and a card I do not recognize, so we'll have to... I think it's another Grazer, which it makes sense. You keep another Grazer in your hand. Well, there's both reasons to do that and not to do that, so it's interesting. Copying the Radiant Fountain. Interestingly, choosing to do so, like prioritizing the life gain over copying a Seeming Growth Chamber, bouncing the Radiant Fountain, and replaying a Grazer to put the second fountain into play, giving you 6 mana available to play a Titan on the next turn. So that is a little bit of an unconventional move for Gorla here, I think, focusing a lot on getting the life gain trigger ability from as many lands as you can, but Curse of Silence. Yeah, maybe that's what he was playing around.
I mean, Curse of Silence is particularly good when your opponents try to manually go up to 6, because it means that it's that much more difficult to go up to 8.
Yeah, although we see another Growth Chamber. That's excellent. That's just so much more mana. You get
Huh.
to bounce Vesuva or a Radiant Fountain. You get to build up to 8 mana.
So right now we've got 6 mana, right? Double
Yeah,
bounce
yeah.
land forest fountain.
Yes, Vesuva is a fountain, so right now it's 6 and 7 if you play a land on the next turn.
Now, Godoy is trying to amass probably a lot of burn spells, but it's going to be very difficult to come back from 6 life that has been gained.
Yeah.
Because it basically blanks to draw steps, which is
Godoy has
huge.
like 4 lands, but also 19, an opponent on 19 life. That's really a recipe for trouble. Yet another Curse of Silence. Naming
Ooh.
Titan again.
Nice. Double Titan name. Okay, let's put Curse of Silence again.
Yeah, I'll
on
make it as expensive as I need to. Another bounce land. Very good draw once again. Let's see if it's going to be Fountain again, getting bounced, or Vesuva this time.
Right.
Okay, we go
So-
for Vesuva.
Bouncing Vesuva gives you 2 options, right? Because it can either be a bounce land or another Radiant Fountain if you need to. But it actually copies Simic Growth Chamber to then bounce
Yeah.
Radiant Fountain. Ah.
Which puts Gorla at 9 mana, which is going to be 10 mana on the next turn, which is enough to play a Titan through double Curse of Silence, and in the meanwhile, gain 2 life.
Monastery Swift Spear. Well, yeah. Resolves. That resolves. So Amulet Titan basically says, I'm doing nothing, but just gaining a bit of life here and there. And this is actually maybe where this Radiant Fountain has come in handy super well.
Yeah, I mean, it's been excellent this game, right? Like plus 10.
Drop.
You get to draw 2, but I get a Primeval Titan, so, you know, what now? Yeah, I draw. Draw away,
Yep.
my friend.
Yep, and then I guess it resolves. There might be some confusion regarding some rules, maybe. But yeah, Titan resolves, trigger on the stack, will tutor out something.
Yeah, we could see maybe like a backup to Larewes just to make sure that a silly removal spell doesn't stop you with your Primeval Titan. Maybe we're gonna see,
Maybe a bounce, again, another bounce land for Radiant Fountain.
yeah, or
If you're going-
Boseiju. Boseiju makes sense, sure.
Kill Portable Hole, free
Yeah,
up your amulet.
Free up your amulet, have hasty Titans.
But I have to tell you, when we picked this matchup, I did not expect it to take up most of the round. Actually, players
know.
are it's not such an easy matchup. It seems.
I mean, this entire game, Gorla was in the driver's seat and I think never got out of it. While Godoy was trying to slow him down with the Curse of Silence as well. Tried this probably about 10 because he did slow Gorla down. It just
Didn't convert
didn't,
into
yeah,
anything.
didn't convert into anything, seems like.
And this comes back to the point of disruption is fine, but only if you use pressure alongside with it. Because just disruption, especially such conditional disruption, you just play through it.
Yeah.
So Godoy has got like 5-ish cards in hand, I'd say 4 or 5.
Seems like it. 2 mana. Bolt.
Now, I mean, if Godoy had 11 cards in hand, maybe that would make a difference, but
Alright, Bolt end of turn.
down to just 18. So now we're playing from a position as if the game just started.
Yeah. What I think Godoy needed this game was the 1 ring in Bern. That's like probably the missing link.
Yeah. Or bumping the knight, because he's got so many lands.
True.
Just play it, flash it back.
Well, he has 5 lands, right? So still not enough for bump.
Which might speak to the card's playability. Right.
Alright, so we still see heavy consideration being paid to the place made. Of course, you want to you don't want to miss anything. You don't want to lose games that were winnable. So you still search for those paths that would lead you to victory. And it is a skill in itself, playing from when you are behind, trying to conjure and imagine what sequence of draws can I draw, like what sequence of draws can save me here? What sequence of plays does my opponent need to make for me to win? Like maybe if I believe that my opponent is going to play around a certain card for the rest of the game, even though I don't have it, I have a chance to win, so I'll just behave as I
if
would
you
have
had
it.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Maybe I'll just bluff it for the rest of the game. Maybe that's the only way. So
Also, there is this phenomenon called putting yourself in a position to be lucky.
yes,
Because, sometimes people, yes, are lucky, but they may have been putting themselves in that position for a few turns to be able to, top deck, let's say, bolt into bolt on turn 7, right?
exactly.
And they took, for example, riskier lines before that to then end up in that spot.
Yeah, you could call that like you could call that playing to your outs.
Yeah, multiple
Whatever
names.
suits your needs more.
Yeah, so now we see Boseiju getting rid of Portable Hole, freeing up that amulet. So so this game should probably close this turn.
Yeah, double on taps. No, we see only one amulet, right? Yes. So it's single on taps, stride and play. There is a second Titan, which can also be hasted. Then they can all attack, grab Valakuts, and that is so many.
Yeah. Still, I think that the burn play is counting the damage to make sure whether finding Sacred Foundry or not changes the math. Because you don't want to find Sacred Foundry, say, yes, untapped, and then die, by those 2 damage.
Of course, you wouldn't.
So you're just double checking. Of course, in practice, you're probably just dead twice or something. But yeah, double checking doesn't hurt. Especially because it's game 3. Oh, come on. Okay. And Gora just shrugs, says, yep.
Yep.
Trigger.
So this one I assume searches for Slayer Stronghold, and Boros Garrison gets hasted, and then we move to combat.
Yeah, and then you get double trigger of both Titans, so you get 4 lands total.
Yes, which could be 2 Valakut and then essentially anything. Then the second one can get like Celestia Sanctuary and Sunhome. That way you get to double strike one of your Titans too, so if you just need 6 extra damage, but the Valakut triggers alone, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2.
Yep.
8 times 3, 24 damage.
Bouncing Radiant Fountain again. So this one copy has been played and bounced multiple times this game. And yeah, move to combat. One of them has Vigilance, the other doesn't. Double trigger. So Godoy is making the opponent play through it.
One thing that could happen is a Wear Tear or like some other removal spell could take out the Dryad before the Valakut triggers resolve. That would stop them from happening. So
if everything is a mountain, Valakuts are also mountains, right?
yes.
So in this case, Valakuts trigger each other?
They do, yeah. It even trigger themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's just whenever a mountain comes into play, if you control 5 other mountains. So it is true that Gorla controls 5 other mountains, and it is true that a mountain has entered the battlefield because Valakut is one. So it is currently.
So we've got 4 triggers, right?
Yeah, 4 triggers. Both Valakuts trigger
each other?
twice, trigger each other, and trigger
And themselves.
yes. So it's 12 damage alone, and then the other pair of lands is also 12 damage.
Yeah, because they will trigger. Each land will trigger each Valakut. So yeah, plenty of damage coming through.
If you want to go even more extreme on someone, you could use Vesuva, but Vesuva is already in play, so that is not going to be happening right now.
What's the typical number of Valakuts in Titan deck?
It's most commonly 2. Occasionally, you see people cutting down to 1. I think it's very, very extremely rare to see 3. There is almost never need. Like with 2, you see that with 2 Valakuts here, you get to deal so much damage that it doesn't really matter to have more available for the Titans to search.
From your experience, the Valakut kill. How often do you get the Valakut kill, and how often do you get those other kills? For example, primeval just combat damage. Any like proportion you could just come up with?
It's just very common. It's very easy to win with Valakut triggers. It's kind of like what depends on what you like. In most situations, you can just access either. Like both are
Okay.
viable to you, and you just get to choose.
And now we watch the backup, and the backup, yes, it's exactly what you see on the screen. It's mono red midrange versus mono black coffers control. Yes, yes, indeed. We put that as the backup, presuming it would take longer, and we did not miss with that assumption.
Yep.
We will confirm the scores, but if those are correct, it means that they've only played one game before that.
And now we've got the ring mirror. This mono red deck is kind of looking like an Obosh deck, like it's built like the Obosh decks are in Modern typically. But also, it also has Karn, the Great Creator, which is like a surprising but interesting inclusion. But let me tell you, like mono red decks, they don't do too well against Wormcoil engines typically.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the fact that both of those decks are 5-0 and 1, it's great in itself. It really is. I'm afraid, though, that they might become 5-0 and 2 soon enough.
Well, we're gonna see.
Oh, we've got outdated scores. I think they flipped, actually. So Mono Black is actually up a game and is in the driver's seat now. So might actually come to a conclusion. Although, yeah, Double Mountain, Bolt, and Sokenzen.
Okay, so you need what? 4 bolts to deal with Wormcoil engine.
Yeah, just 4. Now, you don't have to look at the opponent's life total that much like you would with the burn deck. So if the opponent gains 6, it's like kind of whatever. So at least there is that. So for example, you could ignore it for a bit, then kill it and only kill, and then ignore it for a bit more. But yeah, it is an awkward position nonetheless. Maybe you can play another ring and then get protection from Wormcoil, which would negate the life gain as well because no damage is dealt. But it seems like the mono black player is heavily favored with a full grip and now untapping. Also double coffers in play.
Also
So
32 life.
yeah, so like copious amounts of mana can be created.
29 life after the ring trigger has resolved.
Yeah, just
Okay, that's a way to prolong the game with Seasoned Pyromancer tokens. You can block the Wormcoil engine twice. The life gain still happens, so +6 life, very useful. We could try to count how much mana available is there on Who Breaches side, but I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 swarms, which means that every coffer stops for
at 6, yeah?
Yeah, at 6. At 5, rather, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
If you count it as a land that needs to tap. So it's 5, 10, and then the rest of the lands.
Crucially, Cabal Coffers itself isn't a swamp, so it doesn't count itself unless there's an Urborg in play.
Yes, yes.
Which is something that those decks usually play to be able to enable that. Okay, so now ring activation, respawn Field of Ruin your blast zone, float mana, pop it. So now we've got colorless floating for Teodonio. I can see chat still discussing the burn versus Titan matchup. And the discussion is between it's unwinnable versus, well, you kinda can win sometimes.
I'm on the side of winnable. Every game of Magic is winnable. You just need to try and find a... Well, every matchup rather, not every game. But every matchup is winnable. There's always ways to try to...
Flip the script.
Like find ways to maybe, you know, beat someone who is baseline advantage against you.
Any other ideas of matchups that are so lopsided? Infect Green Tron from the past, certainly.
Yeah.
But like nowadays?
Let me think.
The fact that you're thinking shows that matchups are pretty even-ish. right? Everybody has game against everybody. You, those skewed matchups probably will pertain to decks that are very linear, like Living End, Amulet Titan.
Well, I frequently heard people describe the Yawgmoth versus Rhinos matchup as like
Oh yeah,
extremely hard,
I've heard that. Yeah.
which is not a matchup I have much experience in, as I have not played either of those decks all that much. But allegedly, it is really, really hard for Yawgmoth, and Fury, cheap interaction, free interaction, just all too hard to overcome, while the Rhinos are trampling over you, and you can't even get to use your Yawgmoth properly.
Titan and Scam. I've heard Titan cannot possibly win that one, and that the Scam's existence is the reason not to play Titan.
Sure.
So that's another one. But I think there are just very few. I think there are just very few. I mean, Red Green Scape Shift Omnath, maybe?
Yeah, I think as the card design kind of sort of trends towards being more interactive, then the matchups also trend towards being just closer and like more just like within a certain range, and where the outcome of the game falls in that range depends often on player precision and how well they execute it.
Now we see double bolt on Wormcall Engine, which is a desperation play. Sokenzen block the army token, or the orc army token, but Hubri has got like 10 cards in hand?
Yeah, Hubrich has a
Pre-activation, pre-ring activation.
he has an immense hand, but like there seems to really not be much in it. Like mostly damnations,
More rings.
a little bit of removal, more demolition fields, which is also against a monocolor deck. All right, let's tap the ring again. Let's draw 5 more. Maybe I'll find something useful. Nope. I've seen Fotsy, Swamp, Fatal Push,
Yep.
and something else.
This is another curse of interactive decks in general, right? Like, even if you're ahead, you sometimes might not be able to actually capitalize on the fact that you're ahead that well, and you give your opponent still, like, 11 draw steps because you cannot close the game.
Yeah, especially since Tedonio has the one ring in play too, so he also just he has 2 mountains in hand right now, but he's gonna draw 5 new cards, the draw step and 4 extra cards from the ring, so that's just so many.
Now, if it is true that we've got 1-0 for Mono Black, it might just end with 1-0, resulting in Mono Black taking it down.
Seems like.
So when it comes to the clock, does it affect your deck selection at any capacity?
A little bit. I was certainly stressed to play some decks that are just very slow, very grindy, play games that require lots of objects that are being put on the battlefield. So that certainly was an issue for me when I was trying to play Yorion decks in paper tournaments. Back when Yorion was legal in Modern, that was a little bit spooky. And another thing was that back in Minneapolis, when I played in Pro Tour March of the Machine, I just decided that I will never play mono white midrange because I could not imagine feasibly playing with this deck because it was like playing such long and intricate games. But we see Hubrich just ends up winning the match and taking the
handshake
for him.
and closing it down. So Mono Black coffers control 6-0-1, undefeated still. With the ring, with the Bowmasters to punish the opposing ring, with the ability to go over the top. Would you classify it as a ramp deck to this kind of, scape shift type
Tron,
of arc? Yeah?
Yeah, Tron, like Tron metagame space, I guess I would say. It's like
To punish the
more of
Ozona.
a control deck, but it still is a deck that just goes big and is playing Karn, the Great Creator, so that's like, those are the signs of a ramp deck for me. Also Karn, a nice way to hose opposing rings too. In this metagame, you get to turn off their activate ability with the passive ability on Karns. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So, Ramp is taking even more metagame space as we're watching this tournament, and we're covering every other round, but this tendency hasn't really changed. So, I'm really curious to see which decks actually end up at the very top when we come back and cover round 9, which is the ultimate round of today.
Yeah.
And until then, see ya.
Hi guys, welcome back. We are here from Bologna with the LMS. Today we will see 9 rounds of Modern. We are in round 8 right now and there will be 9 more tomorrow, 6 for Swiss and then the top 8. And we are ready and will go directly to the game of this 8th round. What are we going to see in this situation?
Yeah, we've got a unique deck to watch here in the feature match. We've got Boros Convoke against Teamer Rhinos. Looking at the deck list, I don't believe we have any copies of the One Ring if we get them up. But yeah, no. Really cool Boros Convoke deck, and more specifically, this matchup is a win and in. So the person who wins this
nice.
match is guaranteed a spot in day 2 tomorrow.
I confirm no ring in both decks.
Yes, so that's good to hear. And more importantly is how do you qualify for day 2? We don't know exactly how many people will be in day 2 yet, but 7 wins guarantees, well, it's a lock. You win this round, you're in. You've got 7 wins, 1 loss. It doesn't matter if you use the last round. We've done some maths here in the booth. We don't know the exact numbers because it's hard to calculate when you have draws and drops, but it looks to be about between 60 and 90 people are projected to be playing in day 2. So it's going to be interesting when we get the metagame breakdown of that as well, while we see an Ornithopter and a Sacred Foundry here for both Convoke player. That's a Gleeful Devotion. For Pioneer players, you may know what that does. We're going to try and destroy the Ornithopter, and if it does get destroyed, we get 3/1/1 humans, is it? I don't know what 1/1s they are. But that's going to be a dead gone.
They are 1/1 Red Pyrex and Goblin.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter what they are, because they aren't being made, because we've destroyed the Ornithopter in response.
But that was a good start for our Boros Agro player, for Stefano.
Well, it's a good start, but it's actually a terrible start, because we've used 2 cards and put nothing on the board.
And now let's see if we can go on and keep up with this plan and go on with pressure or not.
And now we're in an awkward spot because this ice is going to lock down the mana, and Boros Convoke does not have a lot of lands in the deck, typically relying on 1 or 2. We do have our second land, taking 2 from that Sacred Foundry, but we need some high-impact cards here to be able to get these Venerated Loxodons and whatnot down. What are the actual Convoke payoffs? How about we get that up? So we have the Knight Errant of Eos and the Venerated Loxodon. Those are our payoffs, as well as we have the kicker cards. So we've got 4 Goblin Bushwhacker and... Is it? Yeah, just 4 Goblin Bushwhacker. What's this? Halo Hopper. Oh, that's a lot of new cards for me.
Meanwhile, Traveling Spectre is down on the board, so he's making a clue token.
That's going to be a Shardless Agent. Wait, what's happening here? Oh, we're fetching a land first. I thought they were fetching for the Rhinos card. We're fetching a land first, and then we're going to cascade with the Shardless Agent. That's going to go into our Rhinos. Oh, top card.
The first one.
Fair play. Now Boros Convoke. We've really got to put something down. With the shields down from our Rhinos player, you have to do something here.
Yes, 2 mana open. And he's facing to a couple of Rhinos that now are a huge problem. Voldaren. 1 damage, 1 blood token created. That can be useful for chump block something, but
can't chump block a 4/4 with trample, sadly.
No, not for the trample. Yeah, of course, but
yeah, and I think another rough part of this matchup is we're looking to make a load of 1/1s and convoke something with cheap 1/1s, but when you're playing Fire Ice, it is definitely hard to have 1/1s stay around on the table, or even Fury as well. Fury just completely wipes this board, for example.
a second Volder and a second blood token. The change of tokens is just for being more clear for us to understand which one is a proper token.
So
That's only that.
we have access to Violent Outburst if we want to pump our creatures in this combat step. We have also access to Fire Ice and Brazen Borrower if you want to keep that up. It's now down to the decision of Jacob if he wants to pump his team. I would assume the answer is no, because this is 10 damage. And I guess your argument can be, okay, I'll pump my team. This 10 will go to 13. You're at 2, and I'll kill you on my turn with Fire Ice. But I think it's more likely you just want to kill either the 2 Voldaren Epicures or hold up Brazen Borrower and bounce. Because if the opponent managed to do something funky with, let's say, a Goblin Bushwhacker, because there was a lot of information being told when the third land was being played, right? When you have blood tokens on the table. So I think I would assume that there's some sort of scary card in the opponent's hand. I would rather try and go for killing things than pumping the team, but nope. Jacob's analysis, we believe that pumping is better and just trying to kill next turn. And also, this just does put 2 4/4 blockers on the table as well. It's not even like if there's a Goblin Bushwhacker, we can lose, because you just do get 2 blockers as well.
Now there are 4 rhinos. 4 rhinos on the battlefield. And Stefano is down to 2. It's very difficult from this situation for him, from this spot.
Okay. So if we can Gleeful Devotion and have Goblin Bushwhacker, we need a bit more than that, but there is room to do something here. Obviously, we need a lot, but there's room to do something.
3 goblin down on the board. Now he has 6 creatures.
That's 14. If we can kill one right... Wait, this is lethal, isn't it? Block 2. If you block 2, don't you take 12? That's game over. That,
Oh, wow.
I think it's game over. 2, 4, 2, 4. That is game over.
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake to go for the rhinos. I think you were meant to try and make the board smaller. Like I said, that Goblin Bushwhacker steals games, and it is very risky to let the opponent have multiple tiny 1/1s. So that is going to be game 1 going to Boros Convoke
Wow.
as we go here for sideboarding.
It was very difficult for Stefano to reach in and reach games for this situation and win the game, but with that Bushwhacker, it was amazing. Amazing.
Wow.
And now, yeah, we can just check about the deck list and the sideboarding. What do you think that could be options for them to bring in? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so Boros Convoke, we have access to Forge Tender. That does counter red removal spells. Definitely, also just a 1-drop creature. Let me see. I assume it counts Fury. It counters Fury. Prevent all damage from a red source. Yes. So that's a must include.
Yep.
Need to be able to get rid of that Fury. Oh, 4 Dranith Magistrate. Your opponents can't cast spells anywhere other than their hands.
Yeah.
Instantly counters.
That could be huge.
And Containment Priest. Wow, there is actually over 10 sideboard cards that are amazing for this Boros Convoke player.
Well, we can guess that when you came in this tournament, you can expect something like Temur, and so you can bring something that it can be useful.
Rhinos in the sideboard. Brotherhood's End. Fury. Force of Vigor, maybe? Because you do have things like Memnite, Ornithopter, as well as some artifacts because you have Gleeful Devotion and Kuldotha Rebirth. So it's not a terrible idea to board in Force of Vigor, but you would definitely need clunky cards to board out. I'm not too sure you would want many copies of that. Endurance, again, no, I think you're just looking to load up on removal spells like these Furies and Brotherhood's End and try and keep that board empty.
And now let's see the game 2 of this round.
Oh yes, Twitch chat pointing out Containment Priest does not counter Rhinos because it's a non-token creature. My
Yep.
mistake. Good catch, Twitch chat.
Let's see what they decide to do. They are still shuffling and getting ready for their first draw. Again, they are playing for their win and in because 7-2 or better will take you to day 2. And tomorrow there will be 6 rounds more plus top 8. And they will fight for the qualification for Lille. That will be the final, the regional championship of this season. And it will be Pioneer. 30 minutes left on the clock plus the extra time, because every time we ask players to come and sitting in the feature table, they need time to set up everything, just for pictures and stuff. So they will have some extra time.
For those wondering about what decks we show, we're just trying to show diverse decks, but this is actually a win-in for day 2. Both of our feature matches, we have win-ins for day 2. Stakes are really high here. A lot of the 7-0 decks, they are great tier 1 decks. I mean, Team of Rhinos itself is a very good tier 1 deck. So as we see here, Boros Aggro taking the mulligan in the opening 7.
First mulligan. Let's see.
Okay. So one thing we've got to be scared about this game is multiple removal spells. In the blind, you have like the Team of Rhinos player is going to keep any hand with any flurry of removal spells, even if they don't have Rhinos. And we can see here, there's a Brazen Borrower, a Fury. I mean, just having a Fury in the opening hand as Team of Rhinos is putting you in a very good spot.
Land. Rhino. And let's see. 18 to 20. First shock land. And let's see.
It's a Memnite,
And 1 mana.
Gleeful
Again.
Devotion.
The same start as the first game, but now this one is resolving. So we have 3 tokens on the battlefield.
Oh, that's a Brother's Hood end off the top.
Oh, nice.
So we have access to Fire Ice, Brazen Borrower, as well as Fury.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot because, like, casting Fury here is not bad, because you're getting rid of 3 1/1s that cost 2 cards to make the 1/1s. As well as if you just went, like, Fury into Ice, that would really slow down the opponent. But then you're left with no removal spells in hand. So it's a really tough decision.
Ooh, land pass.
So we're just going to go for just Ice and not use the Fury, looking for more value from our cards. But this could come back to bite the Team of Rhinos player, because letting the opponent untap with 3 1/1s, that's technically 3 lands in this deck, because
Yes, exactly.
we
because
have
the convokes.
12 cards with Convoke in the deck. If we can make our land drop and make some more creatures, we could easily
And there is
play a big creature here. So let's see what our Convoke player has. Do we have a 5-drop?
or maybe you
Is
can.
this a Loxodon? That is a
Yep.
venerated Loxodon.
And here we are with the Loxodon.
But while this looks amazing, don't forget there's still a Brother's Hood end
Yeah.
in the opponent's hand. So this would punish the no Fury, but we still have a backup plan.
Because now all creatures have a +1/+1, but 3 damages from the Brotherhood, yeah, will be more than enough. And of course, also Stefano is tapped out, so it was a sure cast for the Brotherhood. But there is still 4/4 on the battlefield for him, so of course attacking with that, taking Jacob down to 11.
Draneth Magistrate.
Ooh, we were talking about this a second ago.
So we have access to Brazen Borrower and Fury. Choosing to do none of them. Obviously wanting to hardcast that Fury. We can bounce the Draneth Magistrate to hand with the Brazen Borrower. The Team of Rhinos player has multiple answers to what's on this board. Just got to be very careful about hasty creatures.
Yeah, and now he has to resolve the Dranit, otherwise he cannot cast anything.
Well, with the Brazen Borrower, you can just bounce it to hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on the upkeep, the Crashing Footfalls will be able to cast, be able to be cast. And then you can hard cast the Fury to kill the Venerated Loxodon. So I would actually put the Team of Rhinos here in a favored position. But yeah, this match is a win-in for day 2 of the event.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're, high stakes here. Getting to day 2 is a very good chance of qualifying.
And the first one, yeah.
So lots of pressure on these players.
Yeah.
Crashing Footfalls comes down because that Draneth Magistrate is in hand. And now, do we have the 5th land to cast this Fury? We have a Beseiju. Yeah, this is just game over. You get to Fury and have Force of Negation up? Or are we thinking about passing and just holding up hardcast Mystical Dispute?
Let's see.
Nah,
No, he's going for the Fury, yeah.
makes sense. Very difficult now to win with 3 untapped blockers as well as a Force of Negation up. I think this is almost a guaranteed win for Team of Rhinos. But don't forget, I think Boros aggro here was poorly positioned because it was on the draw. Being on the play here, this game would have gone completely differently.
Yeah.
And in game 3, our Boros Convoke player is going to be on the play. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic.
Exactly. Down to 14. Casting back the Dranit.
Ooh.
And we also have a
Okay.
Burrington Forge Tender.
So this does something because the Forge Tender has protection from red, so it can just block the Fury and doesn't die. And with a Katria Triumph off the top for Team of Rhinos, you now only really have hard cast Dispute up. But I guess that's just hard counter anyways.
8 damages from the Rhinos, so down to 6. Three mana open, 5 mana open for his opponent. And a Topter. Let's see if he's trying to find something. A cool Dota on the Topter.
So sacrificing the Thopter is an additional cost. So if you
Yeah,
dispute
exactly.
this, the Thopter should be in the graveyard. It's
Exactly.
actually relevant here. You could just hardcast Force of Negation and keep the dispute for the next turn. I think you have to counter this because you can't you don't really want to leave around some 1/1s on the board. It also depends how many cards are in the Boros Convoke player's hand. We don't know.
Yeah.
So if there's like, I think there's 2. I would assume countering this makes sense. If there's a 5-drop in hand, they will instantly convoke it. So yeah, I would counter.
And
Yep.
counter the first one. So the top turn now is on the graveyard. Let's see if Stefano can do something from here, but it's very difficult. And land pass.
So lethal you. You should.
I'm just wondering because we cannot see Stefano's hand, so blocking one, going down to one.
And now
Life
Fire
point.
Ice for lethal. Oh, of course, the Forge Tenor can counter it. I mean,
Sacrificing
the
it.
game is over because with
Yeah,
nothing on the board and at such low life with the hardcast Mystical Dispute.
At one life point, I really don't know how he can.
What I'm surprised by is he didn't attack with the Fury. Because you can do pre-combat Fire Face or tap and then just attack with everything. I mean, there was many ways to just kill there, but hardcast is. I mean, this game is over. You don't
And
have
yeah,
to think.
Of course. We are going to game 3 right now, but now Stefano will be on the play. It could be relevant for him. Let's see what Jacob decided to bring out. If you want to make a little change, because now he will be on the draw. It's 1-1, yes.
But I think I've got to get this Boros Convoke deck credit. Going 6-1 at this event is impressive,
It's
actually.
huge.
Especially with a Boros, like a deck that I've never seen before in Modern. Obviously, I've seen it in Pioneer. But 6 wins and 1 loss playing in Game 3 for winning in for Day 2. And if Boros Convoke loses this, they still have another winning in next round.
Yeah,
Definitely puts the deck on the radar a bit.
you can try at least, yeah.
Why don't we get Twitch chat opinion? Boros Convoke's going to be on the play here. Give us a 1 if in the chat if you think Boros Convoke is going to win. Give us a 2 if you think Team Rhinos is going to win. Who's favored Game 3 here?
Oh, very balanced answer. 3.
Lots of 1s, lots of 2s.
Let's see.
For those wondering, there are no 1 rings in
Nope.
either of the decks in front of you. There are no 1 rings.
We have 676 players today, so 6-1 is very relevant. Everybody who is going to do 7-2 or better will go to day 2, and then tomorrow we will have 6 rounds more and top 8.
Funny question from Twitch chat. Are there a lot of 1 rings in the room? I actually did some maths. And with the information provided from the standings and the metagame breakdown, and based off of the assumption that everyone's playing a stock list, there should be just over 700 copies of the 1 ring in the room right now. 700 copies. I don't know how much that would cost retail.
A lot.
But again, that's making multiple assumptions, but I think it's not far off that number. I was actually speaking to one of the social media managers at Legacy 2. We were trying to work it out. We've got to guess around 700.
Let's see what they decide to do right now. Yeah, but it's a lot of money. A lot of Golidor, agree. Again, don't worry about the rules because we have 2 judges dedicated for the tables, Alfonso and Marco, and they are keeping their eyes completely on the table every single time. So nobody's doing something that cannot do. And let's see. 676 players in total. And a mulligan for Jacob.
We can kind of see the hand from Boros Convoke. Too vertical. I think it's all down to, does Jacob have a Fury turn 1? Because I would assume 3 1/1s are going to be made on turn 1 for our Boros Convoke player. And it's going to be, are they going to stick around?
Drawing 7. And just waiting for him to decide. This is relevant because both players just want to win this one and go easily to day 2.
Oh, we're just going to have a Forge Tender turn 1. That is a way to counter Fury.
Yep.
So also a very, very powerful start. That is a bad draw. Gemstone Caverns off the top.
Oh.
Wanted that in your opening hand. But I see a Fury, I see a Dead Gone, and a Fire Ice.
And attacking with the creature, so 1 damage. Second land. 1 mana Trouble Inspector. Making a clue. So now you also have an artifact for trying with Kuldota or just sacrificing as an additional cost and make 3 goblins.
I think Gleeful Devotion might be better here as well. Because if there's a force of... I mean, there isn't one, but if there was a force of negation... Yeah, you wouldn't lose your artifact. So now we get to make the 1/1s, though, no matter what.
Yep.
And with the Forge Tender, I mean, it's very hard to wipe this board.
Now there are 4 creatures that can still convoke, plus 2 mana.
So we're going to Dead Gone the Thraben. Force play, you got to just start killing things.
Yeah, of course.
And now we've got to see what we're going to do about this Fury and this Fire Ice.
Yeah, it's a Gleeful Demolition. It's correct.
I might have been saying Gleeful Devotion, actually.
Ah, okay. Don't worry. That's...
I've said that in the past many times on social media. That is a mistake. Gleeful Demolition. That's an island. I think we have to evoke the Fury here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we do like Fire Ice, ping 2 goblins, and then if you sacrifice the Forge Tender, you could counter the Fury. But no, we're just going to let that go. But now, Team of Rhinos is tapped out. It is your turn to put some impact on the board. No, just attacking for 2. So our Boros Convoke player needs to do something here. This is just going to be a Draneth Magistrate, maybe? It is.
Yep.
Stop those Rhinos coming down turn 3. While we know Rhinos only has removal in hand, our Boros Convoke player doesn't. That's another Dead Gone off the top. Lots of removal available to us. But no second red, so we can only cast. We could cast something like Dead Gone plus Ice. And a Fury. We could triple spell here. Obviously, you can do it at whatever phase you'd like. But we just got to keep casting spells, keep the Boros Convoke player slow down as possible.
14 life points for Jacob, 15 for Polly. And first goblin out. And pass, okay. Now let's see what they decide to do in response. 2 mana open, 3 creatures that can convokes.
So here with the Ornithopter on the stack, you don't want 5 3 untapped creatures, 2 untapped lands. So we're going to ice the Drenith Magistrate to try and stop a 5-drop from coming down, basically.
Exactly.
You can't do anything about this. Just going to let it tap and draw a card. That's a Force of Negation as well. Pretty big draw, to be honest.
A
But
second Doctor.
yeah, now we can still convoke a 5-drop.
We cannot see how many cards are in Stefano's hand. "20 minutes left on the clock."
This could be big, because if we have, Holdotha Rebirth, this is actually really good for Jacob, because you kind of have to Force of Negation this, I think. Because if you let this resolve, and then he plays something like a Venerated Loxodon, you essentially lose. But then you're left with just a Fury in hand, which is countered by the Forge Tender. So then you probably lose again. So I don't know how you navigate this. I think you have to Force of Negation because a Venerated Loxodon is so bad for you. And the Ornithopter is sacrificed as an additional cost. You probably give yourself an extra turn, and you can either draw. You just want to draw untapped lands, right?
Yes. Force of Negation on one Topter, so Topter and Cool Dota doesn't resolve.
And then now our Rhinos player has nothing. We need something like Brotherhood End off the top, but no double red, so we cannot cast that. But if we can cast it, then we have the Forge Tender. But this is a convoke card.
And now we have, of course, the Loxodon.
Okay.
Getting a +1/+1 on each creature used for convoked.
Red source off the top. Now here's something interesting. You could. I mean, you just have to cast the Brotherhood End, right? You just have to and kill the Forge Tender. But then there's two. There's 2 for. Yeah, I mean it's rough, and you take a damage from your land. I don't know, because you could cast the Brotherhood End to destroy all artifacts 3 or less, and that will destroy the Memnite and the Ornithopter, and you can't Forge Tender that. But then you have the same problem when you go to cast the Fury, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can work around the Forge Tender by destroying the artifacts 3 or less, but yeah, you need to get rid of that Forge Tender and then hope something off the top. I don't know what.
Of course. But now he has 13 life points. Is very low against the Boros aggro with just 1 land open. Let's see what Stefano can do. 2 cards in hand for Stefano. 1 land. And counting up everything, trying to find a solution for...
Oh, we're going to convoke again.
Okay. Another 5 mana. Oh, we have the Knight. Knight Errant of Eos.
So this puts lethal on the board, as well as fills up the hand.
Yeah.
And now Jakob has 1 turn. Violent Outburst off the top. That doesn't do anything because of Dranith Magistrate. You can evoke the Fury, but that's the extension of the hand. And victory for Boros Convoke, guaranteeing a
Yep.
day 2 slot with 7 wins and 1 loss today. An insane run. Even with the doubters in Twitch chat and the people in the room that didn't believe in Boros Convoke, that
Yeah.
is Boros Convoke locking itself into day 2. And you will probably see that more of that tomorrow because us casters have been loving that deck list.
It was amazing. It was really amazing. And now we are switching on table 2, and we will have Azori Summer against 5-color Creativity. Let's see.
Another winning in.
Yeah, exactly. Another one.
And another no copies of One Ring winning in.
Oh, nice.
Creativity cannot play the One Ring because you will accidentally flip into it with Creativity. So the deck literally can't
Correct.
play it.
And, also,
And Hammer Time is a deck that just can't afford
Yeah,
to play a 4-mana artifact. It's too
Yeah,
slow
exactly.
for the game plan.
So, meanwhile, our operator has updated. They are on game 3. 18 life point for Hammer player and 15 for Creativity's player.
We are in game 3.
Yeah.
Tension is high with only a Stoneforge Mystic though, and obviously a Hammer on the Hammer side of the board. Looking for things like Pure Steel Paladin, which I can see in the hand.
15 minutes left on the clock, plus the extra time. A lot of thinking. We will have another round today and 9 more tomorrow. Oh, and second hammer.
So this is coming off the Stoneforge Mystic. We tuned in when our player was searching.
Yep.
So that's going to be going into the hand here.
Exactly.
And that is actually lining up nicely with the Pure Steel Paladin in hand.
And
Dwarven
Lem-
Mine.
first dwarf and the Teferi.
Okay. So do we have a response from Hammer Time player with Teferi on the stack?
Let's see what he can do. He has 1 mana open.
Gonna bounce the Urza Saga. It is an enchantment, which you can bounce the Teferi Time Raveler. I'm gonna draw our Creativity player key card here. So we don't have access to a lot of mana. We need something like an Ornithopter or a Memnite to give ourselves Metalcraft if we're going to play like Pure Steel Paladin plus a Hammer. But then you still have the same problem that the Dwarf can chump block. As well as there could just be a Lightning Bolt on the other side of the board.
Urza Saga is down again on the board. Second hammer.
Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce the Hammer. That's a tough one. Especially since he's tapping out. So you could land the Paladin, but then the Paladin doesn't do anything because you don't have Metalcraft. That is a really awkward Spell Pierce and a very nice play.
Just waiting to see if it's resolved or not. 2 mana open. It's keeping the
This-
card
It's
on
spell.
the air.
Yeah, it's just stuck in the air. We should have a timer for how long he holds up the Spell Pierce for.
Yeah.
The endurance, by the way, that
Okay.
is some crazy endurance. Like, okay, Stoneforge
Yeah.
Mystic.
It's resolved.
That's a Caldra complete being fetched from that Stoneforge Mystic. Okay.
And attacking with one, trying to go on the ferry, but being blocked by the dwarf.
And now's a big turn. Your Azorius Hammer Time player's tapped out. You have creativity, you just slam. Oh, but that's a pass back of the turn, so there's no
Oh.
creativity. This Caldra complete could spice things up a little bit, maybe killing the Renin 6. Or we could even go for the Pure Steel Paladin, but with creativity passing with mana up, you have to assume there's some sort of
Oh yeah.
counterspell or bolt. Good point as well from Twitch chat. The Teferi Time Raveler has plussed, so we can put in instant speed creativity.
Exactly.
But I think seeing by the hand, there is no creativity in the hand. Teferi goes down. Passing of the turn.
Oh, nice. Now 5 counter on the Vren. Another mana. And pass again.
Okay, now things get interesting with this Urza's Saga because we can get things like Shadow Spear to stop Dwarven Mine from trump blocking.
Yeah.
We can get something like Springleaf Drum if you need access for more mana. You even have access to Pithing Needle, potentially, to Pithing Needle the Arid Mesa, but there's also a Bloodstained Mire. So I would assume in the blind that you're looking to get something like Shadow Spear here.
Let's see what he's searching up.
Oh,
Another
another hammer. Okay. So the Caldra Complete does have both Indestructible and Trample and Haste and First Strike, if I'm correct. So just equipping the Caldra with hammers is good enough. And that's a Pure Steel Paladin. So we need a counterspell here, or it's game over. And that is a counterspell. I think that's
Let's see.
changed the equation.
Yep. And 1 mana open still for hammer player. Attacking with everything.
I wonder if you just go all at Renin 6 here. I doubt that's the right line. You probably just want to hit the face.
Yeah.
Put them dead next turn. Don't even need the hammers. Big draw for creativity.
So he's going down to 8.
But with a passing of the turn, this is not
Ooh.
looking good for the creativity supporters.
Not at all.
That's a Pure Steel Paladin. Have we got anything? And that is game
yeah.
over. That is Azorius Hammer getting 7 wins and 1 loss with 1 more round to go, locking them up in day 2. Don't forget 7 wins, 2 losses, guaranteed into day 2. Now we have our last
Yes.
feature match.
Our last feature match is
Rakdos Scan versus 4-color Elementals. Now you might be wondering, why are they still playing? They got 4 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. You can still get into day 2 as long as you only have 2 losses. So both of these players, they have a winning in for a winning in.
okay. They are getting updated everything.
This is a very rough start for a 4-color Elementals player.
Oh yeah.
Ragavan on the board, evoking a Grief, and I assume that we can scam it. No, we can't. Fable going to the graveyard.
And let's see. This one is game 3. So we are after sideboard.
Yeah, and this is going to be rough, especially having 2 binding, 2 Dovin's Veto. We have an answer for the Ragavan. But with, I think only having 1 more land in hand, we need to both hit our land drops and get some sort of way to start drawing cards. As the Elementals player against Scam, you need to have a way to consistently get card advantage every turn, whether it's a Wrenn and 6, or, well, that just throws everything out the window. That is a Blood Moon. And with a Leyline Binding in hand and not being able to get a plane, only a forest, that's just game, actually. You have 2 Dovin's Veto, 2 Binding in hand, it's just game over. Ragavan probably has enough time to just hit you down for lethal unless you top deck planes very quickly.
Second land.
But Wrenn and 6
And
off the
rest.
top to ping that Ragavan and to keep it at bay. Fair play?
Boseju isn't. Yeah, he's play some.
But that Ragavan being dashed is
Yeah.
going to kill that Wrenn and 6.
And again, keeping up with the Ragavan. Solitude Veto.
With 5 minutes left on the clock here, we might actually be able to get a draw. If
Yeah.
we can keep killing every threat that our Rakdos Scam player plays, I mean, and with only 1 black mana,
Probably
we can't hardcast a Grief. We need to hardcast something like a Fury.
they probably have more than 4 minutes because they have some extra time, so probably they are around like 10 minutes left. Double Blood Moon, land pass. And the One Ring.
Now, things have completely flipped, to be honest. Now it's starting to pull back, because this One Ring will draw you so many cards that maybe it just doesn't matter that there's Blood Moon on the board.
One of the 700 rings that are here today, yeah. And yep, 1 damage from the ring. First draw is the delightful halfling.
Yeah, I guess, well, poor assessment from me by the Blood Moon, I guess. I think this 4-color control player can easily do some things now. It's a lighted halfling. You can potentially cast things like...
Double card draw from the ring. Land. Delighted.
Yeah. I think there is a Terminate in hand, so we can kill it. Or no? I can't quite see what that second card is in hand. Yeah, it is a Terminate. Need to just try and keep mana screwing them, but I think the One Ring is just going to draw the basic lands for you, right? And then you have about double bind. You have double binding in hand.
Oh, that is tough side.
So I guess here you have to take Delighted Halfling and hope that the Triome and the One Ring doesn't
That's
find
right.
any ways to produce colored mana other than red.
Deciding for that. Cycling. 2 damages from the ring. 3 cards draw. We already saw an island in Signorini's hand.
And that is the basic island. That is another halfling. If this halfling goes unanswered, it is actually just going to be game over because we've unmana screwed ourselves against double Blood Moon.
And yep, it's resolved. Let's see if he can keep the halfling on the battlefield or not. 2 mana. And
Dashed Ragavan.
attack with Ragavan.
Okay.
Another ring.
Oh my! That is a 1 ring off the top for a Rakdos Scam player. So now, because Dovin's Veto can't be cast, we can now cast the 1 ring and hope to outdraw the opponent. Okay?
Yeah.
But if there's a Teferi Time Raveler, Prismatic Ending, any way, there are ways to kind of easily get rid of this 1 ring, especially with Binding in hand.
Now it's a ring battle. I agree. Just asking to the judge for be sure about every trigger and everything.
Yeah, while this 1 ring is a nice hit off the top, I don't think it doesn't swing in any favor because it's so easy to remove now with good mana.
2 mana, 3 mana with the halfling. And we have the fairy.
Yep. And now you get a free ring.
Yeah. Exactly. Top draw.
And this second ring is huge because now you can draw cards with your 1 ring and then play another one so you don't die.
4 cards draw from the top. We don't know exactly how many time do we have left before the turns. Let's see.
Twitch chat, cut me some slack. This is my last round of the day. Of course I want the game to be over. I want to go eat dinner. What you mean? Of course I'm going to keep saying it's game over. It'll speed things up.
And let's see. Why is counting up his cards in hand? Oh no, okay. He's thinking about what he wants to do. So now he has too many, so he needs to discard a bunch of cards. Yep. And okay. Two Leyline, 1 Dovin Veto.
So if we Fury and we kill the Teferi and kill the Delighted Halfling, I mean, you could hope that they still don't draw the planes?
Five mana. And Fury. We was thinking about this.
Ooh, Twitch chat saying they saw Force of Vigor being drawn. That would be brutal if that's true.
Drawing 1. Getting rid of both Fairy and Halfling. And Ragavan down on the board.
That is a Force of Vigor,
Yep.
pitching Force of Vigor to kill both Blood Moons. So now we have perfect mana. Or almost have perfect mana, because we do have to pay life to get the, like, it's not really perfect mana, is it? Almost 3 of his lands are fetch lands? So, I mean, you can get the basic planes, but then you don't really have
Let's see.
You need an Omnath. We need an
Yeah.
Omnath.
He has one in hand, I think, if I saw correctly. Fetching one.
So this should get the basic planes.
And we are in turn 1.
And we still have 2 bindings in hand. We still have 2 Dovin's vetoes as well. So we can't even, like, bolt out the 4-color player. Oh, no, sorry, 1 Dovin's veto. 1 Dovin's veto was pitched to the Solitude. Still drawing cards with that ring.
We need the dice. Hellish Norn.
Okay. So now binding exiles 2 triggers twice, so you can exile both the Fury and the Ragavan.
And
We go.
pass.
Right, Hellish Norn can block the Fury. I guess, because it's 6 damage on the 4/7.
Five mana open. 8 life point for 4-color elementals players, 16 for Rakdos Khan players. Attacking with both Fury and Ragavan. And fetching 1 land.
So, I don't know about the life totals, but if we have Lightning Bolt in hand, isn't it just game over? Right? Because we're taking 3 to get this Sacred Foundry, we're taking 2 on the upkeep to the ring. If we have a Bolt, isn't it just a win for Scam?
Leyline on both. but
5? If we can... Grief doesn't do anything because of Hellish Norn. No, Grief doesn't do...
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm literally sitting at the table. I was saying no like they can hear me.
That's why.
Been a long day, chat.
That's why we are so happy to have 2 judges for this kind of situation.
Grief does have Menace, but that's an Omnath to trigger twice, so we're drawing 2 cards. 1 land drop triggers the Omnath twice.
So a lot of life points.
So that's going to get 4 life and 4 mana because the Hellish Norn doubles the trigger.
Yep. So up to 6. And 3 mana. No. He still has Hellish. So now he has also 2 creatures for do something. Drawing.
Can never not draw
Okay.
enough cards. That's a prismatic ending for 4 from the Omnath mana to exile that Grief. But
Attacking with Hellish.
I think we should fetch with one of our fetch lands potentially to trigger the Omnath so we deal 4 damage.
The lighted Elfling.
Because we need to kill them on the next turn. There's no fetch land? There's literally a Flooded Strand and a Misty on the board. Or do you mean there's no fetchable land in the deck?
Oh. That could be. Another Grief.
I guess we can just do it end step because it's a double trigger. And then you gain 4 more life and get mana.
Now we are in turn 4. They need to find a way to end this.
So 12 life. I mean, it's just lethal, right? Because we've got two 4-powered creatures. We can obviously kill this Grief. And then we're going to trigger the Omnath, so it deals 4 damage to each Planeswalker and each opponent. Each opponent and each Planeswalker they control. Dead. No?
Does this hand
Is it a
in
draw? Did they draw? We're going to have to get confirmation from the floor in this one. They just shook hands.
We are just asking them to.
We're asking down on the floor what happened. Someone's going to update. Did who won? They drew? Wow. Okay, we just got confirmation from the floor. They did in fact draw. So
Indeed.
that is going to be it here for round 8. That's our last round today as
Yeah, exactly.
casters. But we'll be back here tomorrow. But I think we've got some dinner to catch. So
Yeah, for sure.
Philip and Piotr will be back next round. But from then, you got a short break.
Hello and welcome back to round 9, the last round of Legacy European Tour Bologna. We're
For
playing
today.
for today. Of course, for today we're playing modern. We've got almost 700 players, but now the focus is on the ones playing for day 2, so they can play, right? So now we're watching 2 win-ins
Or depending on your perspective, lose and outs.
or 2 potential losing outs, and it'll be exciting because this is actually what they're playing for. Because if they win and they get into day 2, their score is live for top 8.
Yeah.
So basically, if you lose, you're out completely. If you win, you're still playing for the gold. Which is actually the system I really like, right? You just day 2 as long as you can actually top 8 the event. And that's the case today. So both players very much live and with high hopes for tomorrow. Even if they don't win, even if they don't top 8, they're still playing for a little qualification and some nice money on top of that. So we're all
Assuredly, it's going to be exciting to follow the match.
exciting. It will. And so players to watch: Ricardo, 8-0, undefeated player. We will also see Arne, who's consistently 50%, 4-4. Nicolo,
Not
5.
the best showing, but I guess it is reflective of the stats of the creature Omnath that he registered 4 copies of for this tournament, so there is some justice in that sense.
Yeah, and we've got 2 players and 5-3 who are out of day 2. Raul 7-1, very much live, actually locked at this point. Marcin Klimushko actually on camera.
Yeah, he's going to be fighting for the day 2 spot right now.
And
Playing Mono Green Tron against Band Hammer.
yeah, so what do you think of this matchup?
Typically, I think Hammer is fast enough to get under Tron, and it is for the most part favored, especially on the play. The green splash typically is for Haywire Might, so that's also helpful against some of the Tron's tools. So that doesn't hurt. The blue splash for spell pieces can also help. So I would probably put my money on Meal for now.
What about cards
if I had to.
like Oblivion Stone or newly printed The One Ring? Does it like skew the matchup?
Well, those are solid cards, but like, sometimes Hammer can be very fast, right? Not with this draw. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just go Sigarda's 8, Ornithopter, and then you equip it with a hammer, and that's 20 damage before you can even think of assembling Tron. So that would be a scary thought. Now, if Klimushko gets more time, I think the game gets much better for him, as once he gets to start his 7+ mana options, the game is actually not that bad for him, and the options are pretty strong.
What about the classic Khan Liberated? Is it still good? 1 against this deck and
yeah.
2 in this format, 2023?
This one is pretty lacking against Hammer specifically. It's a little bit on the lower impact side, so you probably prefer carrying the Great Creator into something useful. Probably Wurmcoil Engine isn't too bad, right? Oblivion Stone sounds pretty great and assuredly will let you survive a turn.
And now we see an attack for 2. Klimushko might actually be assembling what we call the natural Tron.
Yeah, end of turn Warping Whale.
Trigger.
Trigger, yeah.
Extra card for
Neil.
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe draws a card, but
Can we see the Natty?
especially
Oh,
is
I-
gone.
I don't think there is a land at all in the hand.
There is a chromatic sphere for sure.
There was expedition map as well. Because what Klimushko could have done, I guess, is knowing there is no land, maybe play it as a Scion.
No,
Oh,
there
whoa.
is a land, a breeding pool.
Okay. Whoa, okay. Breeding pool.
A little bit of an exotic choice.
It is an exotic choice, and I'm really curious if there are any possibly blue cards to be playing off of it, or maybe it's a way to get, like, I don't know, explosives with a higher cost. Like, no, one more Sunburst. That's interesting.
That's like very hard to say. And I'm kind of clueless so far, so we're going to see as this match unravels. Maybe
We'll be able to see.
we'll find an answer to this mystery. Breeding pool, that's really old. Like, remember when Tron used to play 4 Growth of the Burn Willows and main deck Pyroclasms?
Oh,
That was a
Let's
while
go.
ago.
yeah. Oh, that was, I mean, literally like 5+ years ago. Maybe even.
Probably more.
Yeah.
So yeah, Breeding pool doesn't cast Pyroclasm, so it's not that bad.
If I didn't know, you could assume that Klimushko is on blue Tron, right? Like you see like a removal spell, then like blue land.
Yeah,
I would-
unfortunately, you also see 27, 25 damage coming Klimushko's way, so Tron was not fast enough.
It wasn't indeed, and now they're already shuffling up for game 2. So that was very very fast, and that's one of the reasons to actually play Hammer, right?
For
Just get-
sure, yeah, being fast and getting quick games and getting under opponents who don't have proper interaction. Those are the strengths of the Hammer deck.
And it kind of works with what we talked about last round. So there are people who play ramp to go over Omnath, and now Hammer is just sliding through from beneath, just undercutting all those Tron decks, Scapeshift decks, Coffer decks, just kind of trying to capitalize on players
Mhm.
playing.
Yeah, that's certainly true. That's actually true. That's a good point.
So like we see the Scapeshift player high on the high tables, capitalizing on Omnath. But then Giuseppe said, "Well, okay, let me fight back against decks who are good against the tier 1 deck right now."
Exactly.
Do you think the presence of the One Ring hurt Hammer like overall as a phenomenon?
I think so. I think Hammer is kind of uniquely mediocre versus the protection trigger from the One Ring, so it's also not very good at punishing small amounts of life loss because like you frequently kill your opponent in huge swings of 10, 20, 40 damage, but you rarely kill them, by inches, and so they lose like 1, 2, even 6 life. It kind of doesn't matter often. And at the same time, Hammer is about, choosing the right spot to interact when your opponent is like low on mana, maybe low on cards, fails to find the proper interaction in that very moment. But the One Ring just kind of circumvents all of that. It gives you a turn of protection where you cannot be hurt, and then it gives you like 3 new cards at least, and then you draw even more every turn. So you just need to survive, and once you survive, you're gonna win with the ring against Hammer. So
one way to counteract that would be, I guess, like a spell pierce type of effect.
potentially, yeah.
So would you say that there is no reason to be mono white now?
Well, spell piece is also a little bit of a double-edged sword because of the delighted halfling
Yep, that's true.
portion of the metagame where your spell piece doesn't even counter the ring properly most of the time. Neither it counters like any of the planeswalkers that it would normally get. So that is very, very awkward. And there's also Reprieve, which is a white variant of Remand, I guess, which is
With a particular upside.
a particular upside that ignores can't be countered effects. So, well, maybe that is something you could head to in Mono White Hammer, and if you're not too scared off by the 2 mana value cost of the card, then that could potentially be a good tool.
On the flip side, there have been people playing Mana Leak in blue-white.
Yeah, that's true.
So if Mana Leak was okay, you could, I guess, just swap that to Reprieve and change your mana base a bit.
True, yeah. I think there's great upside in just getting to stick to one color, so I'm like all
for that,
for
yeah.
that, yeah.
So now we see Sentinel, a Tron land pass. So Tron is going to be assembled as soon as next turn.
Yeah, we can believe it's gonna be assembled. The attacks from Esper Sentinel, not as scary when your free lens produce 7 mana, right? So
On the other hand, though, your threats are like very tap outy for those amounts. So you would still give the opponent 2 cards when you play Karn Liberated, and then the opponent might actually fetch out a Spell Pierce, fetch out Hallowed Fountain to play Spell Pierce. So that could be one way. Also, I'm not sure. I don't remember if blue was shown the previous game. So actually, Klimushko might not be aware.
I
It could be
don't think
counter
we've
magic.
seen blue, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there could be Mana Tithe, but let's
Mana
let's forget
type
about that.
always a big deal. Always have to play around this one.
There could be Khan the Great Creator played, and then still pay the tax. But then you can't really meaningfully take anything from the sideboard to play.
Mm-hmm.
If you, again, assuming some kind of a generic Khan sideboard, what would you take with Khan the Great Creator? Like EE, Walking Ballista, something like that?
Seems like Klimushko has chosen to instead play Karn Liberated, so He was probably as clueless as I am when it came to answering this question, and he just went with the other play.
And
Unfortunately, it seems like spell pitch is going to happen, right? Because Hallowed Fountain is getting fetched. You let your opponent draw 2 cards. That's kind of a disaster.
yeah, because like you did nothing, basic nothing. Turn 1, turn 2, and now turn 3, and the opponent is up to cards. This is not a good situation. Yep.
Yeah, spell pierce.
Now the clock isn't great.
Yeah, you can afford to take 2, but you just let your opponent draw 2 cards. So, ooh, Lavinia.
Oh, Lavinia.
It's a little bit of an issue. She doesn't stop us much in the Tron deck besides Karn Liberated. Oblivion Stone or like the One Ring, Karn are still, Karn the Great Creator are still gonna be castable the next turn. So
Yeah, I think Lavinia shines on turn 3 specifically, and this is where he cuts off a lot of things. But now,
6 mana,
trigger.
the One Ring. This time we're gonna pay. We get protection. Okay, all right.
I think Lavinia is being read, maybe by a
Wait, my
judge.
Lavinia doesn't do anything?
Oh, he just literally disappeared off. Okay. Now we're warping, wailing one of the sentinels. And the hand I think is, I think it's Khan the Great Creator, another ring, land, and something.
Yeah, that seems correct to me. And on this turn, Klimushko has protection from everything. Oh,
What? Okay. I haven't seen that. I mean, possibly ever. We see March of Otherworldly Light double pitching, and that's done by Hammer exiling the ring. Now, there are still no attacks, right? Because the opponent has protection,
yeah, it's still there.
and Klimushko has another ring. So that is 3 for 1, and there is still another ring. So,
Seems like Giuseppe repaid Klimushko.
Hansen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the
just-
SP Sentinel attacks. We just like kind of claimed it all back with
okay,
this play.
this game is wild. Now we see an attack for 3, bringing Klimushko down to 14, it seems.
No, there's a protection.
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're
There's
right.
gonna be
Right.
no damage, so. Like,
Okay,
yeah,
so
I guess
the-
I attack you, and like, yeah, I guess I take no damage. And like, yeah, I guess that is all true.
Actually, if Klimushko did take damage, then both could have problems with like maintaining board state type of warning. So
Yeah, another ring anyways. Gain protection once again. Duro. Chromatic Star. So a white bordered card is probably a land. There's an Ancient Steerings. Float green, draw. Academy Ruins. So Academy Ruins is probably the solution to the breeding pool puzzle we've been
Oh,
presented
yes.
with earlier.
you just need to find 2 different lands. Okay, I've got a question.
All right.
Please tell me if these 2 events are correlated. 1, Walking Ballista is in the deck. 2, Gigantha wasn't shown this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
So
it a trick question?
no, because it's not obvious because it actually doesn't have double pip in the cost, right?
Well,
so
it does.
yeah, it kind of does.
It does have 2 of the same symbol, so yeah, that
Yeah.
breaks the Giganta rules.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was driving at.
I,
Yes.
I, I agree. I guess that it could be not the most intuitive, I guess, because this is not what you are used to looking for.
Yeah.
Although my favorite example still remains Fire Ice
Oh,
and Dead Gone, which are both cards that are not compatible with Giganta because Dead Gone has 2 instances of a red
yeah. Symbol.
mana symbol, and Fire Ice has 2 instances of the one generic mana symbol.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, this is good. Actually, I saw when sideboarding, Klimushko picked up Gigantha, and yeah, now we see what the reason was.
Yeah, it seems like he prefers to have the Ballista in the deck to have a potentially relevant play on turn 2.
Yeah, I don't think like if this deck has to play Gigantha against Hammer, something has gone wrong along the way.
Yeah, it's unlikely to be game altering.
So in most cases, I've seen people play Gigantha just because they can, not that it actually necessarily adds anything, because like Tron is already top heavy, right? So I doubt it loses games because it gets ground out. So I guess Giganta is there because it might as well be there.
I think that's an evergreen truth about Giganta.
Yeah.
It's bad, but it's free.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know, we take those.
So now considering his options, drew more cards and is at 16. So Ring is nowhere close killing him. The battlefield is nowhere killing him.
Yeah, there's two cards. Well,
Oh, I mean,
it's
not
kind of
yeah.
close. Like there's two cards in
them
Giuseppe's
is-
hand, and one of them is a
Oh.
Colossus Hammer, which we've seen.
So this is 3 plus 10, so that's 13, not lethal. And then 2 of the ring, down to 1.
Although I assume that Klimushko has some
Yeah,
has an
preferably.
ace up his sleeve at this point.
Because
given-
now he's got what? Literally 10 mana available, right?
yeah,
And for some people asking,
11 even.
we've got a casting team of 4 people and we cast matches iteratively. And this round is cast by myself, Skura, and a renowned streamer and content creator, Canister. We'll also be casting tomorrow every other round. And then the other every other round will be cast by Harry MTG and Caffeine Lily.
Yes.
And-
Harry is gonna be back. Don't worry.
Yes, but tomorrow.
How big is this walking ballista? I
think
believe
it's 5-5, I think.
5/5.
So a 5-5. Now you could respond to that with hammer equip, right? So that it
Mhm.
sticks, because otherwise the ballista can always ping down whatever is being targeted by a hammer.
Yeah, probably gonna see that, like Hammer on Lavinia. That will probably make the walking ballista chum block on the next turn. Maybe.
Yeah. And then you can
Possibly.
just declare block and then kill off the other creature. Okay, so we see Lavinia equip, now ballista resolves. And probably pass. Yep.
Yep.
We could see Horizon Canopy sacrifice there. Just to... Oh, we're activating Stoneforge Mystic. So, like a Nettlecyst maybe is coming down. Nettlecyst. Okay, that's not a card we see often in Hammer, right?
It's pretty uncommon. Some people play it. Currently, I see 1, 2, 3 enchantments and artifacts. So it's a +3/+3 equipment with a 3/3 Phyrexian Germ. Not really the most threatening in the immediate sense, but
Yeah.
it's certainly interesting. Leaves Giuseppe with no cards in hand.
So one card in hand now. Now, for all intents and purposes, that Nettlecyst could have been Sigarda aid equipped to Lavinia, right?
Yes.
And now we see an attack. Is there any argument to Nettlecysting Stoneforge Mystic? So you... Never mind.
All right.
No question was asked. Boo, boo, boo.
So,
Count. Pa, pa, pa. Pa, pa, pa.
3,
pa.
4.
Pianisting a
He's
bit.
16/16, so Klimushko lives. Well, does he? 16/16. He goes to. He takes 11, 12. He's gonna live at 1 if he
Wow.
doesn't ping anything. And Stoneforge Mystic hits him.
Yeah, and he has to take into account the one ring ping for 2. The recounting just to make sure, because this could be key, right? Because the one
Mhm.
ring might or might not kill Klimushko.
There's also +1/+1 from Shadow Spear, so that is also that. So Klimushko,
Might just end up at 1 post ring.
yeah. It was 17, trample 12. Yeah, so he ends up at 1, and he needs to play another ring.
So there is one question in chat. Why not ballista ping? What's the reason for not pinging with ballista?
Because Lavinia gained trample, so you need to survive trample, which means that you cannot afford to.
Make the blocker smaller.
Yeah.
Khan the Great Creator. So we've got the first spell that doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking the one ring from exile.
Makes sense.
So it was exiled with March of Otherworldly Light,
Yeah.
and now it can be taken with Khan because Khan takes anything from the sideboard or exile.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now we see Ensnaring Bridge. Interesting choice.
Yeah, and Snaring Bridge actually played from hand, not tutored out with Khan, right? So, Ensnaring Bridge, interesting main deck choice. Although Stoneforge Mystic could attack, and because of Sigarda's Aid, you could play an equipment instant speed.
I believe that is an equipment that's activated under Karn's passive, so that shouldn't haven't happened, and that is quickly being fixed by very observant judges following
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah, actually,
Even though players have been briefly fooled by.
yeah, not even like 2 seconds passed, and the judge already noticed that.
Mhm.
So that was a quick reaction.
Yeah, even though Klimushko has an ensnaring bridge, he has also very many cards in hand, so
Attack for 1 then.
attack for 1, yeah.
And as we've discussed on this stream already, you can indeed attack the planeswalkers of players, even if you yourself have protection from everything.
Certainly.
Klimushko doesn't activate the One Ring cleverly because he doesn't want to die to the trigger.
Mindslaver.
Yeah, so
Sure, Mindslaver Academy range, why not?
yeah, I jokingly referred to this deck previously as potentially Mono Blue Tron, and we see kind of that in action. So what's the Mindslaver lock?
You use Academy Ruins to put Mindslaver on the top of your deck every turn. Then you play and use it for 10 mana. Then you just take control of your opponent's turns every single time, which should lead to a victory, right?
Yeah, so each upkeep you can put it on top, draw it, replay it. Now you don't even have to take game actions for the opponent because
Yes.
you can just make the opponent passive, potentially make them just mill out.
Yeah, the only thing to consider is that sometimes they might have tricky instants, but it's pretty rare. That's you can tap the land, so
So in the response to being controlled, he flashed in a hammer. Now Klimushko's playing the other Lavinia to kill the first one.
it seems like he's explaining the Mindslaver lock.
Yeah, so he says, I will keep doing that. We don't know what the sentence after I will
He
keep
was
doing
he
that
was
is.
just telling Giuseppe that he's gonna play his deck from now, and he's gonna make the worst possible plays ever, and that's
Yeah.
he's not gonna like it. And it seems like Giuseppe was convinced by the strength of this argument because,
It
well,
is-
that would have been true, yeah.
Coming here today, I did not have Mindslaver lock on my bingo card. Let me
Oh,
tell you
neither
that.
did I, yeah.
Let me tell you that. So Klimushko has got Breeding Pool, Academy Ruins Mindslaver lock possible, and main deck and Snaring Bridge. This is
Seems like, yeah.
one of the hottest mono green or blue green Tron decks you could see today, and one on actually exactly 1 life.
Yep.
So Breeding Pool coming in clutch. Now players are re-sideboarding potentially. Maybe we'll see Jagantha come back. We might not.
Maybe. Let's see.
Yeah.
Eugene, not the best against Lavinia, not the best against some of the colorless permanents present in the deck, so Eugene maybe is gonna be the cut. I don't know what's gonna happen with the rest of the sideboard, but we see Klimushko staring and pondering, seemingly at his ensnaring bridge, but that's probably gonna remain in the deck.
I also saw Blast Zone. This is really good, right? Because Blast Zone immediately can kind of get rid of Sigarda's Aid, Colossus Hammer, Giver of Runes, Esper Sentinel,
Yeah,
multiple 1-drops to destroy.
that sounds very good actually.
Two cards seem to be changed, although we have seen players do this kind of sideboarding trick that they take out the same cards and put them back in, just to make the opponent think you're adjusting your deck, draw or play.
Yes.
Which,
I routinely do that.
yeah,
I play a post-board game, I cut one copy of a Blood Tide Harvester in my Pioneer deck, and just for game 3, I absolutely have to pick up that harvester and replace it with a different harvester.
Nice, yeah. Just make
Makes
them
me feel
think.
really smart.
Now, in practice, it probably gives you the most minuscule percentage of advantage.
Yes.
But when it does, let me
Yes.
tell you,
What was the saying?
it's not good until it's good.
Ziarnko do ziarnka, but I can't recall it.
I mean, like, bit by bit,
Yeah, bit by bit, I guess.
something like that, yeah.
You know, small advantages, they do add up.
So, one more question. Would you consider intentionally not showing Jagantha to make the opponent think you sided in, like, Leyline of the Void?
No.
Not that,
That's
okay.
like that. That's like, I think there the gain is just too nebulous, and you're actually giving up something that could alter the game. And
That's
you know,
fair.
like also if you mentioned specifically Leyline, right? If you want to bluff a Leyline, then your opponent is gonna know whether you open with a Leyline or not by turn 1 that they're gonna play.
But you could sneakily during sideboard say, I won't show Jagantha. Right? And then see if they side in Nature's Claim, you know?
Well, yeah. Technically, you reveal companions after the decks
Are presented?
are presented, right? So there shouldn't be a window like that. Although I guess
In practice.
in practice you could try to influence things in some weird ways.
So we see turn 1, Haywire Might, which is a good overall answer to what Hammer is trying to do. And then we see Lavinia on the other side. So that's not the fastest start. And it's not really disruptive yet, because until Tron's assembled, you don't get really your value out of Lavinia. There are no 0 drops in Klimushko's deck. Actually, let's show Lavinia. That's not something we see every day.
Azorius Renegade
Yes, not Lavinia of
the 10th.
So Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. Each opponent cannot cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands they control, and you counter a spell if no mana was spent on it. So it doesn't have to be actual 0. Evoked Fury would count as well, right? Because no mana was spent to cast it.
Well, yeah, 0 mana was spent to cast it, so I guess it was still 0, right? But it does not have to have the mana value of 0.
Yeah,
it does not check for mana value. It does check if mana was actually spent.
And
It's a very awkward opening from Giuseppe here, right? Just kind of like play Saga.
Also kind of awkward for Klimushko, right? Because you typically want to avoid turn to Forest.
Yeah, but just this is not what Hammer is trying to do oftentimes, right? It doesn't seem like he's any closer to equipping hammers, and it's turn 4, and he played like 2 sideboard cards, but they don't look particularly impressive just yet. So, well, maybe we're gonna see how this is gonna go in the future turns. Although, you know, there's a pretty interesting sequencing from Giuseppe. Last turn, he tapped his Plains and Seacrom Coast to cast a March of Otherworldly Light, followed by playing an Urza Saga, which is probably like a slight misstep, but it also tells your opponent that you don't have a Spell Pierce, most likely, because otherwise you'd like consciously think about leaving that blue up. So I think that's an interesting situation that happened in this game, where like Klimushko can make a pretty educated and pretty confident guess that there is no Spell Pierce in Giuseppe's hand for now, unless it was a
next
level bluff.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Like, it's so interesting.
Yeah, great insight by our expert in the booth, Canister. Very sharp comment. And now we see untap, Urza's Tower was found. Now, the One Ring will easily resolve even through Spell Pierce now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the shortcomings of Spell Pierce that you've mentioned multiple times today.
Yes. Ancient Steerings. Whoops. We see the One Ring.
Yeah.
That's solid.
Maybe now, if the One Ring is played, it can be even played through Mana Leak. So actually, an effect like Remand or Reprieve would be the only way to stop it coming down now. So, is there any argument ever to wait with the One Ring to, let's say, get more value of the protection? So, like, wait until there's like a lot of creatures on the battlefield, or just play it ASAP and start drawing?
Possibly, but you also probably have to keep Pure Steel Paladin in mind. You don't want to die to Pure Steel Paladin, activate Ink of Nexus, equip my Ink of Nexus with the Hammer and Shadow Spear attack.
Okay, and now that's like ultimate protection from Klimushko.
Yeah.
The One Ring, protection, and Starring Bridge, disallowing any attacks. So let's assume Klimushko has 0 cards in hand. Can the Hammer player ever break through?
Giuseppe is splashing green, so probably there is a Haywire Might in the deck, so that would be one way to do so. Haywire Might the Ensnaring Bridge, but we're gonna see what is gonna be searched by Urza's Saga right now. Maybe it's gonna be the Might. I wouldn't be surprised.
We could also see maybe like an Ornithopter getting the Hammer mid-combat. So you declare
yeah,
it
for
as...
that you need a Cigarazade too,
Yeah.
but certainly an option. That's a way to beat Ensnaring Bridge, even if there is no cards in hand. That's pretty good call.
Yeah, historically it's been a classic trick with Ignoble Hierarch. You just attack with Ignoble or Noble Hierarch and get the Exalted trigger post attacks. So Bridge can actually be played through multiple ways. So Haywire Might already on the battlefield, another March, or Ornithopter equip mid-combat.
End of turn, we're gonna draw a card. Notably, Giuseppe had a window to use the Might on the ring, which would actually make Klimushko not draw a single card, as a burden counter would never get put on the One Ring, but Giuseppe is just more interested in answering the Ensnaring Bridge, and it does make sense. That card seems like a bigger problem that, in the immediate sense, the One Ring is there as drawing cards, but ultimately you will never win through Bridge.
Yeah, the question is whether you want to maybe answer Ring now and try to deal with the Bridge at some point, rather than the other way around.
Yeah, but that's when you have more removal in your deck, which it seems like Giuseppe boarded in March of Otherworldly Light, so there is some extra removal in his deck, but it's gonna be pretty hard to rely on drawing it. But Karn the Great Creator forces the issue, and Highwire Might will need to be used right now.
Also, the equip of Shadow Spear is off the table,
Yeah.
at least for as long as Khan is on the battlefield. Khan is one of those planeswalkers whose passive is at least as strong as the rest of the abilities. Khan can like incidentally shut off so many weird decks or interactions.
And we see that Haywire Might exiles the bridge, which finally means that Khan the Great Creator, as it resolves, can just grab the same bridge again and replay it.
Yep. Let's check the phrasing, the wording on Khan the Great Creator. Because what it actually says, the -2, you may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile. So, for example, if somebody exiles your permanent with Leyline Binding, you could also take it from underneath that. Or maybe like in prison decks when you use Serum Powder, you can take something you've serumed away because
Yes.
it lands in exile. So there are those kind of weird spots here and there.
We could see like maybe Karn plus on the One Ring to make a 4/4 indestructible blocker.
Yep, we could.
That's what we see. The One Ring is just ready to protect Klimushko and block for him.
Yeah, Klimushko's playing for the long game because he feels super safe.
Assuredly. Well, by the long game, we mean that next turn, Karn the Great Creator is probably going to fetch, what, a Walking Ballista or something like that, and the game is gonna
And
likely
yeah,
end in 2 turns, but yeah, the long game.
yeah, thankfully we don't have Mycosynth Gardens, no, Mycosynth Lattice in the format anymore, so Khan the Great Creator isn't such an easy win, although Ballista is close enough.
Yeah, like at this
Especially-
point, like Mycosynth Lattice, Walking Ballista, it's kind of the same card. As funny as that might sound. Although, I guess we gotta see if there's a Ballista in the sideboard, because remember that we've seen one in the deck, game 2, so maybe...
Yep, and still no Gigantha, so it's probably in the deck.
Yeah, so if you board it in, then there's probably not a second one in the sideboard.
Yeah, unless maybe Chalice of the Void was sided in and Ballista's in the sideboard. But again, why would you not side in the Ballista if you did it the previous game? So you're not hedging against this particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're going to draw it soon enough with the One Ring anyways.
Yeah. Yossi Paladin against Karn the Great Creator, not gonna equip too much.
But yeah, Ballista is particularly good here because Ensnaring Bridge is symmetrical. Like, neither player can attack. And
Mhm.
so Ballista circumvents that by just being played and just pinging it to death.
Yep.
Did opponent reveal Gigantha because they cannot with Ballista? It is all true. And Klimushko did not reveal Gigantha. And that's actually giving us information that Ballista stayed in.
Yeah, what I think we could say, we could see this then is Karn grabbing Sundering Titan, which is not like common line against Hammer, of all
Yeah,
things, but like
it's
it
not.
would get rid of free lands, so that seems like pretty real. Maybe it's gonna be the Mindslaver. How much mana do we see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lands, and there is 2 towers. Okay, we're probably gonna see Mindslaver, and the Mindslaver lock is gonna be slowly established.
Yeah, so Academy Ruins. And so Klimushko is at a point that he has to think about two things. One, how do I actually win? Like, actually win. And two, how do I not give my opponent any possible way of clawing back?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy to become too confident when you're ahead, and then you lose when you're confident. But now we see Mindslaver activated.
He's a breathing pull away from the full lock, and also he would need to get rid of the One Ring not to die.
So
to it, I guess.
How do you mess up? Okay, we're getting spoilers immediately, but how would you mess up this as much as possible?
Play
Hammer, Spell Pierced, not pay?
well, what a silly play, right? You
Yeah.
play your Hammer and you Spell Pierce. What a silly move from
Yes.
Giuseppe. Oh wait, it was actually Klimushko controlling the entire turn. That makes much more sense.
As Giuseppe, you could say, I want to equip something with Shadow Spear and then call the judge on him for equipping
Oh,
it
you can
under
actually do
Khan.
that.
Ah, okay. You cannot also concede probably when you control somebody.
Yes, you cannot concede and you cannot look into that player's sideboard. Which used to be the case that you could have, but
Could have with the sideboard,
yeah,
not with
yeah,
the
yeah.
conceding. Yeah.
Yes, but that has changed at some point.
I think it changed when Emrakul the Promised End was actually heavily played, so they had to revisit the control player rules.
Makes sense.
Also, there were those weird rules with extra turns. Like, whose turn is it when I take control of you?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the turn of the player who's like being controlled, but it's just being controlled by a different person.
Serious question, why aren't we watching 8-0 players? The answer is very simple. We're watching players who are playing for actual higher stakes, which is playing for day 2.
Yeah,
Because if you're 8-0, you're locked, and going from 6-2 into or out of day 2, that's a huge prize on the
yeah,
line.
those players are battling for huge stakes, and this match is very serious. Like, the winner gets to come back tomorrow, continue the grind.
And that's a
The
lot of
loser
equity.
has to find another way to spend their Sunday. So certainly there is like a lot on stake.
And Klimushko had to clean up 2 cards, so yeah. So do you think there is a world in which Klimushko dies to his own ring?
I don't think that is realistically possible.
So what are the ways that Klimushko could prevent that from happening?
He could probably Karn for another ring. He could Karn for the Haywire Might, then exile his ring. Because his Haywire Might was exiled by March of the Holy Light on turn 2 of that game, so funnily it is available under Karn once again. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so another ring.
He could just
Haywire
draw
Might.
5. This is like so funny that he keeps drawing cards. He has so many cards in hand with ensnaring bridge in play, but like he doesn't need it. He has the Mindslaver.
Yeah, this is what we call synergy. I can't even guess the number of cards in Klimushko's hand. It's like 10 plus at this point. And to be fair, this is a good deck to try to spend all that mana, actually, because you've got so much floating around. Although on average your spells are more expensive.
So he's putting the Mindslaver on top, drawing a card. Now we see ink. Another copy of the One Ring makes sense.
Trigger. And Klimushko still has got 12 minutes, so he can actually tread very carefully in order not to misstep it. Because, you know, you might forget about Mindslaver once, and then the opponent, you know, whatever, like marches the bridge, kills you. So, like,
Perfect execution here, just like, you know, spending all the mana to Mindslaver the opponent once again.
I think I just saw 4 cards being cleaned up.
It's funny, like you say go, but it's actually your turn again.
So basically, we watch Klimushko mirror match.
Yes.
Yeah, and as someone pointed out, Karn is just not even activated. Just don't care.
Seems like an activation has been missed.
Yeah, crack the map? Nah.
Is the breeding pool discarded for some reason?
If you discarded... Oh, you can't. So if you have some kind of relevant artifact in the graveyard, you could maybe Karn for Relic of Progenitors, exile the whole graveyard, and then take that artifact from the new exile.
What if...
It's like a Eternal Witness with super extra steps.
What if it's a land, right? Okay, here comes the breeding pool. So yeah, now we can go breeding pool, put Mindslaver on top, take control of another turn, and that will be the proper lock with breeding pool actually in play. There seemed to be a little bit of a misstep. Klimushko discarded 1, 2 few cards, but then discarded a proper amount.
Yeah, discarded down to 8 rather than 7, but it's already been fixed. It's going to hardly matter. It's not like that's the bottleneck.
Mindslaver.
Although Klimushko is on 3 and the ring is at 2.
Yeah, you just have to get rid of the ring on the next turn, which you can do with the Haywire Might or just grabbing on the ring.
Yeah. Shock this in.
Yeah,
That's
take 2.
yeah ahead.
Alright.
Okay, good.
Tap
Tap
mana.
out, pass. Okay. So again, Klimushko has to be super careful because any one ring trigger missed might be lethal.
Goes to 1.
So right
Plays
now,
lands. Mindslavers.
okay, the one rings. Okay.
The other ring, Legend Rule the other ring, and that's the proper loop.
So can you explain what you mean by a proper loop?
It's just a lock. Academy Ruins with Breeding Pool, that means that every upkeep he puts Mindslaver on top of his deck, then he plays and activates the Mindslaver for 10 mana, takes control of yet another turn, taps all of Giuseppe's lands, and that just continues up until Giuseppe mills and draws his entire deck and draws from an empty deck. So it took a while until players arrived at that spot, but Klimushko has emerged victorious and therefore has qualified for day 2 of this event, which we can congratulate him for. In the meantime, we are moving to Kowalczuk versus Kosovic, who are fighting against each other.
And again, fighting for that coveted day 2 spot, where they're playing for a lot of equity. Because if they win, they're still live for the top 8. So, you know, win this one, don't lose tomorrow, preferably, and you're in. And you're in. Have you ever had a tournament where you like lost round 1 and then didn't lose until the end? Or like maybe let's say top 8 it out of 0-1?
For sure, yeah, that has happened to me before.
The-
It's a pretty nice feeling, like
It is.
you do like get to feel good.
Yeah,
It's also like always funny how big of a difference it is how you feel after a day of playing Magic. If you went like 7-2, let's say, and you made day 2, how well do you feel after going 0-2 into 7-2 compared to 7-0 into 0-2?
Yes.
It's really like the human mind has the tendency to overly focus on the most recent events to the point where two people of the same record can very well just like have giant differences in their moods.
Yeah, I once had a tournament where I began 0-1, I got cheesed out, and then my morale dropped, of course it did, and then I actually managed to not lose, so I top 8'd that event, but my morale could have brought me down, disabling me from top 18. So
Mm-hmm.
you should fight until the bitter end, or at least as long as you're mathematically live.
Yes.
How did the Tron deck win? It was only on one life. Canister, how did it win?
Well, Klimushko won by finally getting rid of his the one ring number 2, which dealt damage to him with burden counters by playing a new one, and assembling a Mindslaver lock, which meant that Klimushko took control of every single turn that Giuseppe had going forever.
And so now let's now tune in a bit more carefully into this game. We've got Kowalczuk at 4 life, but up a game, playing against Scales, and Scales presents huge creatures, right?
Those are pretty big creatures, 11/11 Agbon Ravager, like the construct is with 6 counters, that's so big.
We actually watched specifically Yawgmoth versus Scales earlier, but it did not go as it goes now. Like we didn't even see a creature that's as big as, you know, a construct here or the 1-drop.
Yeah.
And the deck seems to be fully foreign languaged, so Kosovic likes his Scales.
Seems like it. Also, Kowalczuk is playing a Court of Calling right now, fetching a Strangleroot, guys. There is a Zulaport Cutthroat in play, and there is also a Young Wolf in play. So now he is going to combo off. As you see, he's like pointing to each other. I'm sacking this, sacrificing this, draining you one each time.
Wow.
And Kowalczuk also advances to
7 and 2.
7 and 2, and day 2 is the tournament. So
Klimushko and Kowalczuk day 2 managed to day 2 this event.
Yeah.
Congrats to those players. Yes, congrats. And that concludes round 9. That concludes day 1. And that concludes coverage for today.
yes.
I found all the matches today excellent. We saw a lot of One Ring, admittedly, but each deck used it just a bit different.
Yeah, there's like a lot of variety happening today on stream, and there's like pretty cool games. Like, you know, this variant of Tron that Klimushko brought, pretty different than what I've seen from Tron in other places, right? Like, didn't seem like there were many like Ulomogs or stuff like that. It was kind of built in that funny blue Tron-esque way with the focus on the Mindslaver lock. Pretty crazy.
And we began the day with a lot of 4-color dominating, but then we kind of naturally steered off because there wasn't much 4-color at the top tables.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of ramp decks taking over. We saw Scape Shift, we saw Coffers, we saw Tron, and all of those decks say, well, I'm going over you, right? And that seems to be one of the ways to do it. We also saw the meta game for today. And is it Murktide? Actually, 5th most popular.
Yeah.
5th most popular.
I didn't see much Merktide on coverage either.
Yeah. Once.
Yes.
Once, yeah. So, exciting games, exciting decks. No, Coffers at top tables. We saw Monored Khan at top tables. We saw Burn undefeated, like, at the end of the day. We'll have to double check the standings. Mengu did not day 2. He dropped at 3 and 3. Yeah, actually playing Scam, not even Murktide. We saw TSP Jendrek not playing Murktide either. So, yeah, the Murktide masters are falling off Murktide themselves. What a weird world we live in. But who knows, maybe they'll come back actually combating Tron decks rather than trying to combat the Omnath decks, right? With like main deck Blood Moon and stuff.
That's one possible scenario, yeah. Like,
So-
all future always brings new developments. That is the nature of the game of Magic the Gathering, that every tournament is going to be followed by many others, which are going to introduce players trying to one-up the previous ones. So the evolution never stops.
The evolution never stops. Thank you very much for tuning in for day 1 of LMS Bologna. Almost 700 players battling for day 2. Only a couple actually made it. And see you tomorrow.